Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, is brought to you by, well, you. If you want to learn how to support our show, go to patreon.com/laststandmedia. Greetings and salutations. Welcome back to Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast. This is episode number 228. My name is Colin Moriarty. I'm joined as always by my son, Chris Raygun. Chris, good to see you today, my friend. I can't really see you. You're wearing your camo hat, so it looks like you have no top of your head. I can't see you.
Yeah, my brain is invisible.
Yes.
But man, it's a good day, I think. I woke up today feeling good, which is like kind of like usually I feel like fine. Like it's usually like, whatever, it's another day. I'm still alive, I guess. But today I was like, something's good about today. I don't know what it is. Hopefully I don't end up like, with my legs broken by the end of the night. Then that would be like a really poor calibration of my own judgment. But.
Yeah, exactly. And representation of good days versus bad as well.
Yeah, it's like, whoops.
Yeah, it's funny. I feel pretty decent today myself. I realized that if I always get up to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night after probably 4 or 5 hours. And when I come back to my bed, I always go on my phone for some reason. And yes, this morning I just couldn't, when I got back to bed, it wasn't like I couldn't find it when I was like, doing my little search around my bed, the bed, and probably punching Micah's body while she's sleeping, looking for this thing and, just hitting it and look. And then eventually I just went back to bed and I feel much better now. And I know there's a connection there. I don't know why I feel this overwhelming anxiety since news is at our fingertips at all times I go online and I'm like, what has happened in the last 5 hours that has been disastrous? And it's never anything. So I don't know why I don't know why I do it, but I'm glad you're feeling well. I'm feeling well. Dustin Furman, executive producer of Last Stand Media. Are you feeling well?
I am feeling well now. Chris brings up, sometimes you feel like it's going to be a good day. Sometimes you feel like a bad day. I find that whatever I feel like is going to happen is the opposite. So often I'm like, oh man, this is not going to work out. This is going to be a bad day. And then it ends up being fine. But you got to be careful with the confidence on the good days, because those are the days where something horrendous is going to happen to you, is what I'm saying, Chris. And it's just,
man,
the clock is ticking right now. You said it out loud and now you're fucked.
Oh, well, had a good run.
You did have a good run. I was about to say the same thing. You did pretty well for yourself, all things considered. If we were cavemen, we'd all be dead by now. At least I would be. I'd be like an old man. They'd be like, how is this old piece of shit still going on?
I was having a conversation recently about how poorly designed babies are, like, for survival. Like, it makes no sense, really, that, like, we made it this way. Because you see a deer being born, and it's just, like, falls out of its mom, and it's, like, immediately, like, walking around. And then you have, like, us, and we just suck for, like, 5 straight years.
It's very strange.
It's like, it makes no sense. It defies all explanation that we're alive to do a show like this.
I agree. I think I've said this on the show in the past because this is a very weird Colin thing. One of the things I hate about anthropology and like ancient history is that it's just unknowable. No matter how much you study it, you'll never really know. And so, like my mom went to college for anthropology and she's really into that stuff from earlier days in her life. And I'm always like, but you'll never really know. And it's so funny you bring that up because I've always thought about babies in cavemen times. Like, you have to keep that thing quiet if there are predators, if you're hunting. I always wonder that too. Did they come along? This is where the division of labor comes from, I think, and all of that. It's pretty interesting. I totally agree with you. I don't want to say I often also think about, because I'm not thinking about this almost ever, but I think about whales as well, just because they have massive gestation periods, I think, of like something like 14 months or something crazy like that. It's like, damn, you're that vulnerable for that long just to shit this new whale out.
Well, they're also whales. They are enormous. Like, they're not really under threat by anything that isn't like an aircraft carrier.
That's true. I wonder if anyone's trying to make a play for a baby whale, or if even sharks and things of this nature are like, we don't want any part of this whale with its what is it called? Braylene, right? The weird teeth they have that are actually filters for plankton.
I don't know. The only thing I know about whales is that they're big and Dishonored is about them, kinda.
Dude, that's the fuel is whale blubber. I think in Dishonored, it's a really cool like aspect of their economy.
Nice, very New England
lore.
Very cool. Yeah, I like that. I gotta get back to Dishonored at some point. I know that Chris has been playing that as well, but that's on the to-do list. I'm so far behind. We'll talk about it. I don't even know when I'm going to be able to really play God of War because of the way things are lining up right now, but we'll get into that in a little while. In the meantime, let me welcome everyone to Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast. We go up each and every week. You can get us 3 days early and ad-free on Patreon, patreon.com/laststandmedia. We really appreciate your support over there, whether you support us at the $1 tier, the $2 tier, $5, $10, $25. You have all sorts of options by coming in and supporting us on Patreon. You support independent media like us. We have, and I just want to reiterate this because I think people forget about this. We have new people coming in. We don't accept free games from publishers. We get nothing from PlayStation. We get none of our hardware for free. I saw someone respond to a tweet I put out about PSVR 2 and be like, are you going to be paying for it out of your own pocket? And I'm like, yes, I am going to be paying for it out of my own pocket.
Yeah.
So we do that all independent. We play games at the same time as you, all of the rest. And we can do that because we are fan funded by a very hardcore and loyal audience over on Patreon, patreon.com/laststandmedia. We appreciate you. Get your name in the credits. Submit your questions, comments, concerns, and thoughts and ideas to the show. Ad-free access, like I said, and so on and so forth. Sacred Symbols Plus episodes are a major perk for joining us on Patreon. You get those twice a week. And they're deep dives, interviews, spoiler cast review discussions, all sorts of different things we're doing over there. I just had an analyst on from EA Codemasters, which was really interesting. That's a racing studio we're going to talk about in a little while, actually, in the news. And we went into, I have this, let me back up and say that I have this real inclination to try to push people into the gaming industry. And the reason I want to do that is because I feel like a lot of people don't realize that they may be needed in the industry. And so we always say the art disciplines and the programming disciplines are vital, but really anything you can think of in a corporate structure needs to be done in a big publisher or developer too. And so this person is a data analyst and went into that, and it was awesome. It was really interesting. And you don't have to, know how to program or something to do. You have to know a bunch of different things. So we're just trying to put those out there and give people familiarity. And I'm getting DMs from people pretty consistently, a week probably now, being like, I'm in the industry now because of you. You convinced me to do this. It's great news. So hope you guys enjoy that. Sacred Symbols Cross-Defining Duke went live recently. The Sacred Sail Saga will continue. We just had a meeting about the Sacred Sail Saga. It's so much cooler than I can even imagine already with like what we're doing behind the scenes with it. And I saw that new sales data was dropped today. So we're going to have an episode to do in a week or two. We'll get back to that. Interviews will continue, including with Sandeep Rai, who just released his Kickstarter for a PS3 book, similar to the Vita history book he did. It is almost entirely funded already after less than a day. He's going to be on the show, and I'll be writing for that book. It'll be some of the first writing I've done in terms of, games media style writing since I left IGN. So please look forward to that. Also, merch, laststandmedia.store. We have new merch there, including sweatshirts. We have is a Crying Jim sticker in the works, as I understand?
It is in the works, yes. Should we talk about, we're going to be doing some Black Friday stuff? I mean, everyone else, all the stores are announcing, so we're doing a little Black Friday thing with maybe the Jim sticker, maybe some other things returning.
Yeah, it's exciting. It's exciting. I'm looking forward to that. Laststandmedia.store. We appreciate that. And Matt Council wrote in and said, I appreciate this. And I think you guys will too, specifically because I was just talking about this with an actual real priest recently, an actual Catholic priest who listens to the show, and was talking about our symbolism and the way we use things, and the stained glass logo, for instance, which is supposed to be like a church window. Yeah. Matt Council wrote in and said, "Hey fellas, thought you might enjoy this. I recently purchased the Sacred Symbols hoodie, great quality, highly recommended. I'm currently taking RCIA classes to become Catholic. So RCIA is the rite of Christian initiation. So you're hardcore. And so when my wife and kids asked me what the hoodie was, I told them it was an RCAI hoodie they made me buy. The hoodie just looks holy enough to be true. I guess my next move is to wear it to the RCIA. Maybe this will be a new market for you guys. Keep up the good work." That's awesome, Matt. RCIA is a thing where if you are past the period of like baptism, communion, confirmation, and like Sunday school and the whole gamut of things you have to do to become a confirmed Catholic, you as an adult have to go to this other thing and basically learn all that in kind of a speed course, as it were, since you can't be like a 35-year-old man receiving his communion with like 8-year-old little boys. But I never got confirmed, so I would actually have to do RCIA too if I wanted to be a real Catholic again, but I don't. So I thought that was funny. Very nice story, Matt. A little slick, a little slide. That's what I love about the logo. It's not obvious what it is, in my opinion. And Dagan did a really great job on that. That's
the best merch, I think, or the best kind of like, if anybody were to get like a tattoo or like, art on a shirt or something, I'd prefer it be vague in the sense that, oh, that's just good art. And then somebody who does know can be like, oh, I know what that is. That's always the best.
I like wearing fake company logos too. Like I have an Initech shirt that I wear earnestly, which is from Office Space. And then I have, my favorite is the custom made Astra Corporation shirt I have, which is the company in Returnal. And so no one knows what that is. And I wonder, like, when someone sees that, they're like, what the fuck is Astra? Yeah. And do they like look it up and then they figure it out?
Yeah, I have a Fragile hoodie from Death Stranding.
That's sweet.
It just looks so good.
Love it. Yeah. Well, thank you all out there for your love, kindness, and support across all those different channels. And of course, the Clips channel, how are you feeling about it? I haven't checked in on it.
It's good. It's been a very interesting learning experience because the clips that I expect to pop off don't, and other ones that I don't expect do. So it's been interesting strategizing. Specifically, we have Lockmort helping me out with this, and so we meet where we just talk on Discord once a week, and we discuss like, okay, what clips do we want to do or whatever. And it's been interesting strategizing. So if you have any feedback about what clips we've talked about, like, should there be clips that are just like a funny part of the podcast? Should it be headlines, PlayStation stuff? Should it be a mix of everything? So it's been fun doing that. So hopefully you guys are enjoying it.
Yeah. I'd like to see eventually, I don't know how it would work, but just do a clip every day, and it could be something stupid. It could be something interesting or insightful. Like you said, an ad mixture of both. So keep up the good work, boys. We appreciate you supporting us over there. And finally, leave us nice reviews on iTunes and Spotify and all the rest if you can. But enough of all the rigmarole. Let's get into Last Stand Live. We're coming back. The third live show that we're doing. It's the second evening with Last Stand going to Houston, Texas. Dustin, tell us about it.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. We got the whole crew lined up in February. You're not going to want to miss it. And tickets are on sale right now, right? Are we doing that at noon for patrons? They're on sale Friday.
They're going to be on sale Friday, but it'll be around. Yeah, I'm going to push it a little bit so that these things aren't publishing all at the same time. But yeah, around now, like look, like 2 p.m. Eastern time, I think I want to do. So yeah, about 2 hours after this goes live. So if you're hearing this just when you're just rolling into the show as it goes live, look in a couple hours and and it should be good to go.
One important thing to point out, and we probably should try to make this as well known as we can to anybody, is that the seating, it's not just a general admission ticket. When you buy a ticket, you actually select a seat in the auditorium. So theoretically, from what I've seen, I mean, there's not going to be a bad seat in the house, but if you want to be close or if you have a certain spot that you want to be, you should probably buy a ticket as soon as possible for the most amount of options. If
you want to have a chance of perspiring on you because you're so close to the stage, and there's that energy between the audience and the performers, be good. I'm excited about this. This is going to be fun. Austin Killian wrote into us on Patreon and says, "Hey, Sacred Team, what the fuck? You scheduled your last live show during a vacation I had planned well before you announced it. I thought, that's a bummer, but I'll catch the next live show. Now you announced the Houston show, which lands directly on my youngest daughter's birthday. Cool shit. Thanks for further proving my theory that my life is the Truman Show." Austin, nothing's stopping you from bringing your daughter to the show. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure she would love that.
I'm sure she would have a great time. So sorry that it's not lining up for you, but we hope to see you all there at Last Stand live in Texas. And details on Patreon. The post will be available only for patrons initially, and then we will go free for everyone else if there are tickets available. I think this is like a 500 seat venue, so we sold 420 tickets, I think, in Richmond. So I think we'll do okay in Houston. Houston's, a couple of people were like, why would you want to go to Houston? And I'm like, I don't think people realize how big Houston is. I just don't think they realize it. Like, you can just see the reaction to this show. I think Ben was saying it too. That the reaction is just, there's many more people saying, oh, I'm definitely going, I'm going, as opposed to being like, oh, I wish I could be there. It's a little out of the way, or blah, 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 or maybe I'll go. I think we made the right choice with this one.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be great. I can't wait. I've never spent extensive time in Texas before. I've only been there on like a, when you're stopping in Dallas Fort Worth for
layover.
A plane or whatever. So I'm really excited to just hang out and get barbecue, which a lot of people have a lot of opinions already about the barbecue, saying Dallas isn't really the right spot for it. But here's the thing. I live in Western Pennsylvania. Literally, it's not going to take much for me to be better than probably anything I've ever had. So I'm excited regardless.
People get a little, I don't know, geographically speaking, people get a little bit defensive about certain foods, when in reality it's more of like an area of effect type deal. It's like New York pizza is fantastic, but you can get really good pizza in Connecticut as well, and like New Jersey, and even places in Pennsylvania, because it's almost like the opposite of a nuclear explosion, where it's like, okay, like this is the epicenter. It's like that's where the great shit is. And then as you get further out, it does get worse, but it's still pretty good before it like fades away, Right. So like I would imagine as long as you're in Texas, you're in pretty prime barbecue area in comparison to, I don't know, fucking North Dakota or I don't know, Oregon, like, I mean, you're stand down, like calm down.
Yeah. Saskatchewan. What are you guys eating up there?
Yeah.
Moose?
No. Fucking dodo birds.
Dodo birds.
There was a moose.
It's like Joe and Mac up there.
There was. Oh man, they do. Do they eat? Is moose edible? Like
I would assume so. I would assume so. I would have to assume.
People eat anything, Chris.
I would assume. Yeah, I guess so. People eat mattresses on fucking TLC or whatever.
Dude, I saw that one.
I guess that's fair.
The fat. Did you see the fat black woman that was eating a mattress? I saw that one. Unless there's multiple ones.
Yeah. See that. No, that is the one. And you know what? The second I saw that was the moment that I was like, I'm not going to eat healthy. If she's still alive and she's been eating mattress foam, like what harm is a Coke every now and again?
That's exactly right.
What harm is a slice of pizza in like the morning? Like, oh, it's so unhealthy. Like, it's not mattress foam for like 30 years. I'll be fine.
It's very weird. I love that you saw that because I feel like that almost never happened. I'm sorry, Dustin, go ahead.
That show was Strange Addiction, right? I saw one where a guy just straight up eats glass. Yeah. I was like, well, anything is possible.
It is kind of
anything is possible.
It is kind of in that territory though, where I'm wondering how much of that is real. Because a lot of reality TV shows are like, because when I was in college for film, one of my screenwriting professors she wrote for like reality shows. And I remember being like, that's so interesting that they have writers and like outlines. It's almost like a Curb Your Enthusiasm episode where it's like almost improv, but not really. Mm-hmm. It's very bizarre.
Yeah, well put. I knew a guy in Catholic school that ate staples.
What the fuck?
Past tense, you knew.
Yeah, I knew him. I haven't seen him in many years, but he's still banging around, I guess. I don't know. I'm sure he's up there somewhere in New England. All right. By the way, I put "do people eat" in Google and just stopped. Here's what it says. Do people eat, and this is based on my login, I don't know, Pokemon, horses, bear meat, acorns, dolphins, kangaroo, jellyfish, guinea pigs, and penguins. Do you see the same one? I see the same.
The last one, I have monkeys on mine.
Oh, interesting.
Yes.
Yeah, I have penguins on mine. And then, so do people eat moose? Yes, moose is safe to eat. It is also one of the healthiest foods available. The benefits of consuming moose are much greater than the risks of contaminant exposure. This comes from the Canadian government in the Northwest Territories. So that
explains why they've survived for so long.
Yeah. What is it? What does moose taste like?
Winter.
Yeah. All right. Well, there you go.
Would you guys eat the moose?
I would eat a moose, yeah. I would eat most things, I think.
I would say, what about a horse?
I was in Iceland and I went to dinner with people and someone got horse.
Hell yeah. It was, I'd try it.
Yeah. I don't know how it went for him. I wouldn't be able to do it personally.
There's not an animal that walks upon land that I wouldn't eat.
Wow.
Put it that way.
A rat?
Are you sure about that?
I would eat a rat.
Would you eat a dog?
Yeah. If I had to.
If you had to. Okay, this is
but you
slightly
wouldn't just go and eat a dog though.
I wouldn't like go into a puppy mill and just start devouring a dog raw. But like if I was in I don't know, like I don't know, places where, like, because my dad would tell me
Careful.
stories. So he would tell me stories about how.
Kidding.
No, he would tell me stories about how, like, he got these birds. I promise we'll get into the PlayStation stuff soon. Like, after this, probably immediately. But, like, I have to tell this because it's right in my head. My dad told me a story about how he was in the army once, and they all got these burgers. Because, like, another regiment told him, like, yeah, there's a place down the street that makes really great burgers. And he was like, and he had some. And then later on, he was feeling fine. And then later on in the day, they told him, it's like, hey, you know what that burger was? And they go, like, what? It was I think it was dogs. And then he immediately got sick.
Yeah.
And, like, started throwing up.
I think that's a relevant part of it. Because that even happened, there's, like, little pieces of fiction where people are eating or implied to be eating humans and not even really knowing it. And it's like mind over matter kind of stuff,
Yeah.
Because people do eat, depending on where you are in the world, I think, cannibalism is still practiced somewhere. I'm sure it was practiced many places not very long ago. So
yeah.
I don't know. To each his own, I guess.
I feel like it's probably very popular in, like, Elizabeth, New Jersey.
Yeah, specifically Perth Amboy.
Some listener from there right now, their head just, like, perked up.
Yeah.
Excuse me?
And they turned to the left to their shelf of other heads that they consume.
The Meadowlands is definitely just all skeletal remains of mobsters dropping bodies there for 85 years at this point.
Jesus
probably.
Christ.
So, but that's where the Jets play. So let's go. All right. Anything else did we touch on everything here? I think we're done here. We're done now.
I think so.
All right, let's get into some topics of discussion. Only one correction from last week. Andres wrote in and said, correction for Colin. In last week's episode in the conversation about spoilers, Chris brought up Dark Void. Despite correctly identifying Nolan North as a voice actor in that game, Colin incorrectly mentioned a ninja star weapon. That weapon is from the game Dark Sector from the same generation. You're absolutely right. And I looked this up. So I remember Dark Void, 2010, Capcom published. That came from Airtight. That was their first game. Airtight Games' first game. They ended up doing that game. Do you remember that Square Enix published game? I saw this when I was reading about it. I was like, oh my God, I forgot about this game. Murdered Soul Suspect. Do you guys remember that game?
Oh my God, yeah. Oh my Lord.
Yeah. That was a 2014 adventure game that Square Enix published, and that was the end of Airtight Games. So that was, they made Dark Void. Yeah, they made Dark Void. And then Dark Sector was published by D3, which is a Japanese publisher that I don't even know what they do anymore. I think they do a few things here and there, but that game was made by Digital Extremes and released 2 years earlier in 2008. That's where that ninja star weapon comes from. And of course, Digital Extremes will go on to make Warframe. And so we're never going to see Dark Sector ever again. But I don't know why I got those two mixed up. That Dark weapon.
I understand because, like, in the moment I was like, you said the ninja star weapon. I was like, yeah, that does make. But then I remembered both of these games very distinctly from their covers,
right?
Because they had demos, and I was like, Dark Void wasn't that game's cover, but I couldn't remember Sector. I couldn't remember that damn word. Also, I'm looking at Dark Sector now. This weapon looks so stupid.
It would just slice the inseam of your arm when you used it. It's like it was like what people used to say about the new
Maul's,
bad guys. Yeah, his like
Kylo
Ren's thing on his thing where it would just cut his own wrist.
It's a very dumb design.
It is. I remember at IGN,
but it was funny. We
made one out of like cardboard for some video, and that's like a memory of mine because it was just like stapled to a wall somewhere and then forgotten about, and that was just the symbol of Dark Sector. But shout out to that game, and thank you for the correction. You are absolutely right. Always good to relive PlayStation 3 nightmares. Dark Void, I remember that was the one where you had the jetpack, I think, and
that was the flying game.
Right. I remember that game.
It was okay.
Yeah, I didn't beat it, but I played it. Okay. Trenton Brink wrote in. He just has a quick thing. We have to build Dustin up right now. He says, Sacred Boys, Dustin is actually funny as fuck. I see you, big guy. Keep it up. It doesn't go unnoticed. Dustin, how does that make you feel?
Well, I just wish I knew what this was in reference to.
I think he's just being a generalist and saying that,
sure,
apropos of nothing, you are a funnier person than people give you credit for. How do you feel?
That means a lot. My main goal in life now is to try to be funny every once in a while, at least. I don't know. It's like before, at one point I wanted to be a filmmaker or something like that, and I really cared about trying to say something profound. I don't care about that at all anymore. I think that I would way rather be a funny person than a profound person. Definitely. So I appreciate it.
The profound things that come out of funny people's mouths, that's where the key nexus is. But see, I was told, and Chris and I have had this conversation before about comedy, and we had it recently actually, and we've had it many times about what's funny and all of that. And people have told me I'm funny in the past many times, but I've found that the best route for humor for me is to just, like I said last week, play it straight. Like for some reason, people just find that funny, and it's not that far from my actual persona anyway. And it, that to people, especially when you have people like really naturally funny like Chris around you, and it bounces off a lot better that way. Or Abbott and Costello type, good cop, bad cop style thing. I think it just works out that way for me. But it is good to also be silly. I think silliness is an important part of humor. And I think that this show encompasses that a lot.
Yeah. Speaking of that in general, that new Weird Al movie is awesome.
Oh, yeah.
I was going to ask you about that. I forgot.
It is so damn funny. It's on Roku,
it's very good.
Free. It's free. Cool. Like, you can go to like RokuChannel.com and you can just watch it for free if you don't have the thing.
They won't let you pay for it,
funny.
though. Huh? You have to watch it with ads. I was searching. I was like, I'll pay for a Roku membership for 1 month to not watch this with ads.
You do, but because Al was on Twitter and people were asking like, "Hey, I don't have a Roku. How can I watch it?" And Weird Al was just like, basically, just steal it. Like, he was just literally telling people to torrent it and just like, I think he was like, yeah, there's VPNs and stuff. Go find it. Figure it out.
Yeah, he did it in like a real overt way, but hiding his,
Yeah. But it is damn funny because it does that exact thing. It plays it like entirely straight, and it's really good. I highly recommend that movie.
Yeah, I'll have to check that out. I like Weird Al a lot. I know you do too. It's so strange because he's one of those examples of, it's like a one of a kind. Can you think of any other person that does something like this? Like that's even remotely notable ever?
No, absolutely not. Like,
it reminds me of the Jerky Boys, where like a million people were doing prank calls. Like they got a record deal to do prank calls. It's like, it's a totally different thing. And I love that.
It's a different echelon. He's also like the most squeaky clean person in like, as far as like celebrities go. Like it might destroy me if I found out something really dark about Weird Al. You know what I mean? Like that might actually because everybody else you kind of expect. Like, I don't know. I'm sure everybody on Seinfeld has something, or like, I'm sure like everybody, like there's a bunch of my favorite people probably have like all sorts of skeletons, but like Weird Al just seems so pristine to me. Like, I hope he dies untouched, I think
he will. Cause remember when he tells that story about Coolio and like how they thought they had like their T's were crossed and I's were dotted with the Gangster's Paradise cover. And then it wasn't. And he had like this, and he was like really scared. Like, and that's funny to think about now because Coolio, I don't want him to come over and kill me or whatever, but kind of soft compared to a lot of the rappers today. I don't know that I would really be fearing Coolio compared to some of the other rappers.
Dead, so you wouldn't have to
say,
is he dead? When did he die?
Pretty recent.
Oh,
like last week, I think.
September 28th.
Oh, wow. Okay, yeah. I feel like I probably knew that. Oh, yeah, September 20th. Yeah. 59 years old. That's too bad. Coolio. R.I.P. R.I.P.
Yeah.
R.I.P. in peace. Or R.I.P. Bozo, depending on how you feel about him, I guess. But that's not how I feel.
Yeah.
That's not how I feel. Sacred Symbols is brought to you by Chime and their suite of basic banking tools and award-winning banking app, all of which you can learn more about right now at chime.com/sacred. So there's no doubt that for many people, money is an intimidating thing that they can barely get their minds around. But financial literacy, especially in your early adult life, is essential. Building that solid foundation now will lead to dividends, figuratively and perhaps literally as well, down the road. One thing all young people should be on the lookout for is your credit score, because your mystical score, which is determined by your economic interactions with the world, can and will determine everything in your life, from your ability to get a mortgage or car loan to even securing the job you want. And the best way to build your credit score is to use credit responsibly, pay off your bill in its entirety, and watch that score balloon. With Chime's Credit Builder Visa credit card, you can begin building your credit score quite literally with your own money. By using it on affordable purchases and taking care of the balance, which is what many of us already do and have been doing for years, you can make your credit work for you with no downside. If you stay responsible and within your lane, you can earn a sky-high credit score that'll help you net, say, a lower mortgage rate down the road, or get that car loan you wanted, or whatever else. Your credit score is currency, and fair or not, it matters a great deal. So start working on yours with Chime's Credit Builder Visa credit card. And heck, while you're there, explore Chime's awesome banking options and award-winning app. You can get a checking account, a savings account, and so on. So start your credit journey with Chime. Signing up takes only 2 minutes and doesn't affect your credit score. Get started at chime.com/sacred. That's chime.com/SACRED. Again, that's chime.com/sacred for the Credit Builder Visa Credit Card, checking and savings accounts, and so much more. The Chime Credit Builder Visa Credit Card is issued by the Stride Bank N.A. pursuant to a license from Visa USA. Chime checking account and $200 qualifying direct deposit required to apply for the secured Chime Credit Builder Visa Credit Card. Regular on-time payment history can have a positive impact on your credit score. Impact the score may vary, and some users' score may not improve. Out-of-network ATM withdrawal fees may apply, except at MoneyPass ATMs in a 7-Eleven or any Allpoint or Visa Plus Alliance ATM. Sacred Symbols is brought to you by BetterHelp, customized online therapy you can learn more about right now at betterhelp.com/symbols. Our always online and interconnected world gives us all a constant view into the idealistic and perfectly executed lives of others, where no problems seem to exist and everything moves along swimmingly with zero tension. But my friends, that's all fake. Everyone has bad times, sorrow and sadness, confusion and anxiety, and on and on. I do, you do, everyone does. These are totally human experiences, and it'd be bizarre if you went through life dodging dealing with the whole gamut of, well, human emotion. But it's what we do in our down moments that truly define us, and it's here that BetterHelp comes into play. BetterHelp is customized online therapy that meets you where you are, not the other way around. That means that you don't have to drag yourself to an office somewhere for an in-person session. See, lowering the barriers to therapy is BetterHelp's specialty, conducting completely online therapy sessions with qualified therapists. That means video or audio or even just text. BetterHelp also lowers the financial barrier to therapy, one that has for far too long kept people severed from the help they really need. I'm 38 now, and looking back at my life, it's crazy how much has happened. The highs and the lows, the ups and downs, the happiness and the sadness. In the past, therapy has helped equip me with the tools I need to deal with, in my case, anxiety and depression. And I can only imagine what I could have accomplished if something like BetterHelp existed in my wild early 20s when I really needed accessible help the most, and when it wasn't at our fingertips like it is now. Whether you're dealing with relationship problems, issues at work, malaise and sadness, an inability to focus, or just about anything else, BetterHelp can, well, help. As the world's largest therapy service, BetterHelp has matched 3 million people with professionally licensed and vetted therapists, available 100% online. Plus, it's affordable. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to match with a therapist. If things aren't clicking, you can easily switch to a new therapist anytime. It couldn't be simpler. No waiting rooms, no traffic, no endless searching for the right therapist. Learn more and save 10% off your first month of sessions at betterhelp.com/symbols. That's BetterHelp.com/SYMBOLS. That's betterhelp.com/symbols. For affordable and effective online therapy that can help you right now. All right, I wanted to get away from this subject matter, but this is a funny one. I had to share this. It's good. Pace wrote in and said, "Hello, Jen. Sorry for the long post, but I had an interesting interaction in my office building's public bathroom. I never go number 2 in a public bathroom unless it's an emergency. My morning coffee kicked in and I felt the bowels rumbling. The coast is clear. I prepare this seat and get comfortable. Right before I unleash the fury, the bathroom door swings open and a guy walks in talking on his phone speaker. I pause, hoping he would be quick and leave, but he enters the stall next to me to continue to talk. I can't hold it any longer and unload the demon baby hot and loud. The guy stops talking mid-sentence and I hear a lady on his phone say, "Was that shit?" I gave a courtesy flush, then hear someone from his phone say, "Bill, call us back once you're done." He hung up the phone and said, "Thanks, buddy," like I'm the asshole. I don't want to see this jackwagon face to face, so I clean, wash up, and run back to the office. Am I the asshole? What is the proper phone etiquette for a public bathroom?
That's insane.
Yeah.
That is hilarious. That sounds like a Curb Your Enthusiasm thing.
Definitely.
You know what I mean?
Definitely.
Like that is a Seinfeldian circumstance to a T. The idea that someone would come into a bathroom stall and blame you for using the bathroom is hilarious. That's golden, man.
I have a problem. This goes into, I really
Absolutely.
think there's kind of I mean I have a lot of problems with you people as well.
Oh.
But I don't mean it like that. That was a Seinfeld quote.
Yeah.
But I have why does Seinfeld always come up on this show? I don't understand. I don't get it.
I don't know.
I don't even remember what I was going to say. It doesn't matter.
It's ephemeral.
It
You have a problem with bathrooms. I think is what you're going into.
Oh, right. Bathrooms and so when people go into a bathroom, it reminds me a little bit of our conversation. And I was saying the nexus of people singing at concerts and how people can't imagine that you're not supposed to be screaming the words at a concert. Okay. I'm just going to reiterate that one more time. That's just the baseline rule.
Yeah.
You can't go into a bathroom on the phone and expect that anything's going to happen. And I wanted to connect it to the concert thing because it's like, how self-important do you think you are that anyone wants to hear you fucking talking on the phone. And how self-important do you think you are that the phone is being played over the speaker?
Oh, that's insane. Yeah.
You if you think you're being like a boss doing that, you look like a fucking idiot. You are fucking rude. You are a moron for doing that. And that, I feel, Pace, is what you should have told. That's what you should have stood your ground and been like, go fuck yourself. And you should have had another, and you should have timed a fart. Like, your post-poop fart, you might have a little fart lined up. You should have said, go fuck yourself. And then like a train conductor or like someone pulling on an air brake, you go like this. And when you do it, you fart. So it's like, go fuck yourself. And then you walk out and that's it. And you fucking crop dust and you get out of there. That's how I would have played it. Yeah.
Yeah. Or you could have banged really loudly on the store doll and said, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill you. And then he probably wouldn't have been so tough. Because I don't know how that would scare the shit out of me. If someone in a bathroom stall was like pounding the doors screaming, I'm going to kill you. I would run the fuck away. That's not a situation I want to be in.
The thing is, and okay, I can only speak from my own experience being a man going into men's restrooms, but men are disgusting. I hear women are disgusting also in the bathroom, that there's piss everywhere there too, whatever.
Of course, they go to the bathroom together and like trade tampons or whatever the fuck they do in there.
The thought of even like, you see people go in at the urinal on their phone. They got a dick in one hand and a phone in the other. And then they walk out. There's no washing of hands, no flushing. And then, we bring up what Pace here with talking about the speakerphone at the same time. Enough.
That to me
there's piss and shit everywhere in a bathroom. Piss crystals. Yeah. You just don't even get your phone out. Why? In fact, also don't talk to anybody while you're in the bathroom either. I can't stand that. If someone says hi to you, I don't care if I'm just walking in, walking out. Don't talk to me. This is a sacred place.
I will say that I have been in bars where it's or like venues where it's loud, and then I'll go and I'll get a call. This is very infrequent. This is maybe like twice in my life this has happened. And I'll get a call that I need to take, and then I'll go into the bathroom where the sinks are usually, which is like usually separate in the places that I've been.
Sure.
And then I will have like a brief, like maybe like 30-second conversations, like, hey, I'm out. Like I'll text you later or something. But I'm never on speaker. And I certainly don't go into the stall with my phone on speaker talking in this echoey fucking... That can't even be a good experience for the person you know what I mean? Like, it's the acoustics in a bathroom just like echoing everything back to you. That guy just doesn't know anything about audio at that point also. So this guy is just becoming extra worse and extra stupid as the story gets layered and layered.
Right. Fair enough.
I want to bring up one last thing. I know we're really hitting this home here with this bathroom story, but I think we'd also just have to shout out Pace's unload, we'll say, was so loud that it picked up on the speakerphone of the other person. That's fine work as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, that's a plot.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you this much about this particular story is be more self-aware. If I can instill upon anything to anyone, in public, be seen and not heard. And even preferably, don't be seen. You're in the supermarket, keep it moving. You're at the deli counter, order your stuff and move to the side. Okay? I don't have patience for all of this nonsense going on. Have a little bit of self-awareness. A lack of self-awareness. Bad. Now, we're all not self-aware in many different instances. But I'll tell you right now, I'm never not self-aware in public. Because I am so paranoid of being in the way. I never want to be in the way. Oh, excuse me. Oh, please. Thank you. Oh, getting in and out of there.
Yeah. No, me too. I don't. Damn, Dustin, that's a good point. That's so loud.
Mm-hmm.
That's like an Oregon Trail.
It's impressive work. Impressive.
That's like an Oregon Trail tier fucking plop.
Blop. All right.
Wow.
Here we go. What's next? Feeling Indigo wrote in. Said, hey, my friends, last week you guys made a joke about Last Stand content being stored in the National Archives and someone finding it in a post-apocalyptic future. Well, it made me want to tell you that I am currently working on the Death Stranding Platinum, and I normally don't listen to podcasts while I game, but I listen to my Sacred Symbols Plus backlog while making hundreds of deliveries. In order to avoid breaking immersion, I imagine myself listening to audio files from the past. I thought you would like to know. Love you guys. Very clever. See, this is the power of video games.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
The power of video games. Appreciate that.
Although if we're mentioning Death Stranding, in the world of Death Stranding. Although I guess Ride with Norman Reedus is advertised in that universe too. So like whatever.
Yeah, and Monster Energy drink. Although they got rid of that in the PS5 version, right? Which is strange.
Yeah.
License expired. Haston Smith wrote in and said, "Hello, boys. I'm a fiend for no ice to the annoyance of my wife. It all started with a rant from Colin years ago, and I've strayed from beverages with ice since. Colin, do you still participate in the no ice movement? And what do your sons think about this? Have a great day, or a good day, and keep up the great work." Thank you. I wanted to be clear about what you were saying here, Haston. Thank you for writing in. Dude, no ice for life. I just want to remind everyone, there's no reason to get ice in your drinks. Don't do it. It's the principle of displacement. I think wasn't it Aristotle that walked into the bathtub or whatever and noticed that the water rose? And so it built the principle of displacement, that a pool of volume can be increased by it. So think of that when you put the ice cube into your Coca-Cola. And I'll say this, I want to be clear because I think some people are confused. I don't drink warm Coke. I have Coke in the fridge, doesn't need ice. Coke from a fountain at a McDonald's or whatever doesn't need ice. It's already cold. Coke from the case at a Wawa, it's already cold. Or Sheetz, they're building Sheetz down the road. We're in like this Civil War area where like Sheetz and Wawa are going to be on the same street. I don't know how that's going to go.
That's kind of nuts.
Yeah, it's exciting. I like Sheetz. When I was in Pennsylvania for the last live show, I went to Sheetz with Ben and Dustin, and I got 2 rounds of cheeseburgers because I was like, I want cheeseburgers, and then I went back up and got more and ate more, and it was like in the middle of the night.
It's like 2 a.m.
Yeah, it was great. It was awesome.
That was fun.
I was hungry. So what were we talking about? What was the question? Oh yeah, no ice.
Ice.
Chris, you agree with this, don't you?
Yeah, I actually got into an argument with a friend of mine literally 2 days ago about this very thing, which is kind of very serendipitous. I don't, especially when you get it from, especially at like a restaurant, you know what I mean? Granted, like most restaurants do free refills, so it's not that big of a deal. But at the same time, it's like you have a glass full of ice to the point where the amount of soda that you're getting is like maybe less than half of the cup. And it's just a complete ripoff. You're never really sitting with a drink long enough for it to get hot enough for it to require ice. And if you are, that's your fault because it takes a while. It takes a while for a properly cold beverage to get fucking unbearably warm. Like, I don't know what you're doing at that point. And also, do you not have fridges? Do we not even like a large drink at like a Jack in the Box, which are hilariously big. They're very large, those drinks. You're not sitting with those so long that they become fucking coffee. Like, just finish your drink. I don't get it. I don't get the purpose of ice. Also, it waters everything down.
Exactly.
It sucks.
Why do you...
One thing I will say, that the cool cheat code that I did see a long time ago, and this is when I was like a young kid, when I thought ice was just kind of like a necessity for drinks, I would take the drink that my drink of choice, and then I would pour that drink into an ice tray, and I would freeze that drink, and then I would use ice made of the drink in the drink, so it would keep it cold for long periods of time while I was outside, and it wouldn't water it down.
You're like a mixologist. Look at you.
Damn.
Yeah, that was before the brain damage.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
It's the watering down is a key component of it too, because I just don't think people are thinking it through. Why does ice keep your drink cold? Because it is melting in your drink. That is why. Why would you want a Coke that's already cold to have ice in it and then melt as it gets to room temperature, making it more watery? It's just nonsensical. It doesn't make any sense at all. I hate ice. I hate it. I like skating on ice. I love hockey. But I don't want to drink it.
Yeah.
Oh, I like ice in cocktails.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I mean, I get there's some places where it's like fine, but like I don't know. Generally speaking, ice. In fact, I hope all of the ice on the planet melts right now.
Me too.
Yeah,
I'm with you on that.
At this very moment, instantly.
I wish Al Gore was right, and that all the ice caps would be gone. Let's move on. I don't have anything else to say about this. Dustin, you have anything else you want to say?
I have very complicated feelings that I just don't know. I
somehow doubt it. I somehow doubt it. I just somehow doubt it's that complicated for you. But if that's the way you want to keep it, that's fine.
Well, fine then. You've invited the question, so here's the thing. Sometimes at a fountain, it is tuned to account for ice. Now, if I'm in control, maybe a tiny bit. This is maybe like a few cubes, just a little bit, because sometimes I like it cut just a little bit.
Wait a minute, let me stop you here. I want to stop you here. I got a question here. Are you using the autofill for is that what you're talking about? It's calibrated for that?
I'm saying if you're at a restaurant or like a fast food place and you fill it yourself at the fountain.
Yeah.
It is tuned to have more syrup to account for the ice.
Oh, is that true?
I don't think it's always true, but I find it to be often true.
I think you're making that up.
No, listen. Okay. If you go to a fast food restaurant, and it's not always this way. That's the thing is that I've had some where I'm like, this definitely, if I cracked open a can of Coke, tastes stronger because I think it's meant to be dialed for ice. Does it make sense?
I understand what you're saying. I mean, because people say, I mean, there are like boutique Coke syrups for different restaurants too. So what you're saying is that, for instance, the Coke syrup at McDonald's is so beloved in part because it is combined with ice and is made to be that way. And
yes.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah. At home, though, I totally agree with you guys. No ice at all. I don't want to. Why? You just put it in the fridge, cool it down. Enough said about that.
Yeah, just put your shit in the fridge, for God's sake. I'm just sick of the nonsense.
Animals.
You know? Listen, the Europeans aren't right about almost anything. It's hard to even imagine anything that the Europeans get right. Go to a restaurant there, they're not giving you ice in your drinks. Makes you wonder.
Yeah, but that's kind of a byproduct of them just being selfish. That's not like, oh, we think your drink is better. That's less about like, oh, we think your drink is better without ice. It's more like, what? No, that's our ice. We're not going to give you our ice. You have to pay extra for the ice. Like the person that I was arguing with was my British friend who was like, no, ice is great. I put ice in everything. I was like, you're crazy.
Because you always want what you can't have.
You're just watering everything down.
But don't you understand? He always wants what he doesn't have. Or didn't have. He wants, the grass is always greener for him. By the way, we make fun of Europe for no reason so much on this show that it's become, like, on Knockback, it's a tradition for me and Dagan to make fun of our dad ruthlessly on the show. So that when he's listening to it, it's like, oh, here's the top part of the show where we're making fun of dad. And for some reason, the Europeans just come on the show. They were really up in arms about the whole Queen Elizabeth thing and about Europe and Britain. And
their nasty pudding. And
the pudding and all that. And I'm just like, guys... You know, I'm Don Draper in the elevator. I don't know what else to say, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know how else to put it. But we'll see you next year. I'll tell you that much. I will see you next year, Europe. Okay? And so will these gentlemen as well. Where are we going to land? I'm sorry?
It's gonna be such an adversarial situation.
I can't wait. I'll tell you guys what I was going to do, and I'm not going to do it. I was going to dress in a colonial officer's outfit. And come out on stage like in, you know, the blue coat and all that. But then it was brought up to me, and it is true that I would be kind of dressing as a soldier, which I'm not. You know, those are the first American army soldiers. So
those are like really old soldiers, though. I mean, it's clearly like a costume at that point.
Yeah.
Like no modern. That's fine. You're not dressing as a soldier.
Yeah, I can see it. I could have dressed as like an aristocrat or something. Well, that wouldn't really make any sense. We didn't have aristocrats, but someone like a plantation owner. But I don't want to dress like them either.
Yeah, don't do that.
No,
yeah, maybe not. No. Maybe not the.
You know, I'm just dressed like myself. But we're gonna see you, and much like D-Day, we're gonna keep it a complete mystery for now about where we will land, and then you will have to. You'll come and you'll find out when the time comes.
You'll find out on the day.
We'll have like a phony army and a fake thing going on over here, and then we're gonna have like a fake show over there, and then we're gonna pop up in Paris. We're not gonna pop up in France. I can guarantee you that. No. Yeah, I don't think so.
Anyway, what were we talking about?
I don't know, but let's get into the news. It's time to get into some of these items. Chris, I was thinking about you yesterday as I read this, and I want to go to you first on this. I wrote in our notes, Mick Gordon nukes Marty Stratton from orbit. There is this Medium post that is long, 14,000 words apparently. It says at the top, a 58-minute read. I think I did it a little quicker, but I'm a little bit of a quicker reader, I think, than maybe some other people. You can also listen to it and like have it play it for yourself. You want to just listen to what it says while you're going about your business. But it's called My Full Statement Regarding Doom Eternal. And this all stems from drama around Doom Eternal, which was a 2020 game. It was supposed to be a 2019 game. Came out in 2020, if I remember correctly. And then there was at E3, they promised a pre-order special edition that would have an OST and all this. And so there's just a bunch of stuff here about how Marty Stratton, who's id Software's studio lead and director, really mistreated, mismanaged, and botched situations with Mick Gordon, who is the prolific songwriter and conductor and scorer of these games. And it's just, I wrote on our Discord, and I wrote privately on our private Discord as well, but publicly, I was like, if you are into industry nerd news stuff, you got to read the whole thing. I know it's intimidating. I know it's like, Jesus Christ, but you got to read it. It's crazy. And so Chris, let's throw it over to you. What do you think?
No, I think it one thing I'll say about it, it's very, very, it's immediately engaging. It's really, really well written. And I don't mean that just from like from a standpoint of, it's verbose or like it's written flowery. It's very direct. Like there's not a lot of fat in all of these, 1,400 words. And it's 14,000 words. Like it really is an insane amount of detail. You're constantly learning things like every paragraph. This is some of the craziest shit I've ever seen. Like, as far as like, I'm sure crazier things have happened, but as far as like stuff that we are now privy to, just the sheer mistreatment of Mick Gordon here is wild. Like they didn't pay him for I think 10 or 11 months, and then they just like strung him, and then they used songs in marketing material and in the game as well that they wrote off and refused to pay him for because, hey, that's, this doesn't work, and we're not going to use this. This isn't what we wanted. We're not going to pay you. And then they ended up using it anyway. I don't. And then there's like these weird like tactics that Stratton used to kind of like, just belittle. Like I don't know why, if you're working on Doom Eternal, why the hell would you make an enemy out of the person who is responsible for what is arguably like 50% of why that game is popular? Like Doom is enormous, not just because it's a great first person shooter, but because that soundtrack is awesome. Like why would you just... And by the way, there's like a lot of receipts too. There's like a lot of metadata and a lot of proof here too. It's very difficult for me to imagine that Marty Stratton could come out with like a defense of any of this that would really be satisfying, because so much of it is just so clear. I don't know, man. But I did want to say this too, because I don't remember how long ago this particular Reddit post happened. I don't remember how long ago this original story broke out. But I could imagine that when we talked about it initially, I was probably a little bit more forgiving of id than I probably should have been in retrospect. And I just want to say, like, apologies to Mick Gordon if I ever portrayed anything incorrectly, because this is crazy. And I can't even imagine the hell, pun intended, that this guy had to go through for this.
Well, before I throw it over to you, Dustin, let me just catch everyone up. If people don't know, this post is so long and actually so wonderfully organized that there's a table of contents. And I think one of the things he does that's really wise is that while he's writing this whole write-up and bringing the receipts, like Chris said, and all of that, a lot of it is actually separated. He almost has a bibliography style or endnote style thing where it's like, here's actually everything. And he's only kind of splicing those in so you can get as deep as you want. So I would say a third of the word count is probably that stuff. You could probably read 2/3 of it and get everything you needed, as long as you trusted everything he was saying. If you need to see the receipts, you can then delve in. But at the end, there is a summary of facts. And so here's what he says. For Doom Eternal, I haven't been paid for over half of Doom Eternal's music. The game includes more than double the music I was contracted to produce. So and he says rejects, mockups, demos, and all this stuff. They basically took everything they rejected and everything they didn't pay for and were working on, and they just said, no, we're going to take all of it. We're going to use it. And it's all in the game. So they basically paid him. It's something like there's 250 minutes of music in the game, and they paid him for like 125 minutes of music. And you're paid by minute when you're a composer in the space. So there's that. And then he says the Doom Eternal OST was a mess. So it was announced with his name on it at E3. Like I said, he was not even contracted or contacted to produce it at that time, as he notes here in his write-up. And he says, despite my alarm and constant appeals, Marty refused to do anything about the situation, leading to a 9-month delay before I could start working. He says that there's over 7 months or over half a year rather of just total what he calls inaction on behalf of Bethesda with the OST. And he received the contract to do it 2 days before Doom Eternal was even released. There was all of this stuff going on with if Bethesda would get in trouble for promising products that didn't exist and the legal liability and how that legal liability might have been put onto him. And so there's a whole drama around the OST. And then he says the OST release, the poor quality itself, because now he is basically co-produced and or co-credited rather on the poor quality OST that he had very little to do with, that came with the special edition. And he is included as a co-creator, co-writer with this guy who he clearly, Chad, something who clearly has no respect for, the sound producer over at id. And so there's just a shit ton of drama about licenses, about rights to work. Of course, you get money on residuals later on, and about the availability of these things digitally and all the rest. And ultimately he concludes that Marty Stratton apparently, and this is, I think, the craziest part, Marty Stratton apparently agreed on a mea culpa with him, and they would write a joint letter explaining everything that went on with Doom Eternal's OST. And then instead, he never heard back from him ever again. Marty wrote that open letter that Chris mentioned on Reddit. And then apparently he's been offered 6 figures, and by he, I mean Mick Gordon, to come in and kind of do cleanup, and he refused to be a party to that. So that's how we get to this point. And I'm wondering what you make of it, Dustin.
Well, yeah, and I think that everything you said, I feel like there's so much more even than what you said, and you went over so much. There's so much fucked up about this story, and I think it's worth reiterating. This isn't a situation, or at least it doesn't appear like a situation like the Bayonetta voice actress,
right,
who just kind of made an accusation, and then we found out that it wasn't true. Obviously, there are always 2 sides to every story, but as Chris said, he came with the receipts in a very, very detailed, very intentional post with this. And what is so shocking to me is that id and Marty Stratton went through every length to try to protect themselves. Colin, you mentioned about basically like the hush money, where basically they were almost willing to come to an agreement where they were going to go do, and he was going to redo the soundtrack. But one condition was they would have to remove that Reddit post of a bunch of lies, according to Mick Gordon, about him. And they refused to do it. Like, they were almost at the finish line from what it sounds like, and they just absolutely refused to do it. And something that I found really interesting that Mick Gordon brings up in his post is that Reddit post that Marty made, he didn't use that Reddit account as apparently something that was pretty dormant. And so while this is speculation, it sounds accurate to me that they very specifically used Reddit, a place where they knew they could get upvotes, to try to get the message out to as many people, and also put it out to arguably one of the more toxic places on the internet. And it really sucks because Mick Gordon talks about the level of harassment that he received based on that post that, was absolutely horrendous, that you can read in detail some of this stuff. So this is shocking. This is the type of thing that I think that, I don't know, like what can they really, there's nothing really to explain. I don't really see them getting out of this in a way. And this is one of those things I'm like, should Marty Stratton be fired for this? Because what happened is morally wrong on so many levels. Like, there's just a list. It goes on and on and on of all the things that they straight up fuck this dude. So I don't know. This is one of those situations, like, something's got to change.
Sacred Symbols is sponsored by Feels and their excellent CBD products, which you can investigate for yourself at feels.com/symbols. If there's one thing I can say about CBD, it's that it's not nearly as intimidating as it seems. CBD, which stands for cannabidiol, comes from the marijuana plant. Now, you may be saying to yourself, hold it, Cheech, I'm not looking for a good time. Well, I don't know how much you listen to the show, but neither am I. Instead, what I'm attempting to open your mind up to are the many therapeutic uses behind CBD, and how with Feels' CBD, you can begin feeling better with due haste. With Feels CBD, which comes in a small vial discreetly shipped to your home, you can alleviate a day's physical aches and pains, lessen anxiety and stress, and even lull yourself into a sounder sleep. Now, I've used a lot of marijuana products in my life and a lot of CBD. I know what works and what doesn't, and I know who has the good stuff and who lacks it. Feels is the real deal, which is why they've been a sponsor of Sacred Symbols since near the very beginning of our show. I believe in the brand, I know it works because I've used it many times, and I know that it can help you too, all without any hangover or addiction. CBD doesn't work like that. It's not out to wreck your body. It's instead out to relax it. When I'm feeling stressed out, I sometimes take a few drops of Feels, put it under my tongue, and wait for its positive effects. And if you prefer CBD on the go, Feels' CBD mints may be more your speed. Either way, with a Feels membership, you can always be readily supplied with plenty of CBD for daily, sometimes, or even just occasional use. Now, I understand this can all be intimidating, and that makes sense. It's not every day you're confronted with a man hawking you marijuana products. That's why I encourage you to take advantage of Feels' helpline, staffed by real people that can answer all of your questions at an expert level, leading you to the products and dosages that make the most sense for you. My friends, it's time to start feeling better with Feels. Become a member today by going to feels.com/symbols. That's feals.com/SYMBOLS. And you'll get 40% off your first 3 months with free shipping. That's feels.com/symbols to become a member and get 40% automatically taken off your first 3 months with free shipping. Again, to feel better the all-natural way, head to feels.com/symbols.
Yeah, like, there's so much. I mean, there is, like, obviously the rundown of facts, but there's no getting away from the fact that Marty Stratton comes out of this looking like a psycho, like, for no reason. Like it really is one of the most insane stories about a CEO, or not a CEO, but a studio director kind of managing their team in a just completely befuddling way, like withholding pay for as many months as they did, despite the Doom Eternal soundtrack being his sole income, and having to fight on the grounds that, like, oh, we're not going to pay you for this music that you used. And then he had to be like, no, you used it at Doom or at, like, Bethesda Live, or like some live show where they demoed the game, so that constitutes use. And they were like, okay, I guess we'll pay now. But it's like, that was true before he had to say that. Like, it's just gross negligence at the worst. But, like, it's just pure mistreatment of your employees at, you know, and I don't know. I really, really, really recommend everybody reads this, because I think it's, you know, I've seen a lot of statements by a lot of different, you know, I've seen these, like, viral posts before, and a lot of them are really hard to read through because they're not organized particularly well. But this one is just really, 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 really well written. And the fact that he turned down such a large amount of money to say all this stuff has me inclined to really believe this guy. It's not like Bayonetta, who turned down, like, a couple grand, you know? And also, that was just kind of like a weird, like, Twitter video full of, like, vague things, and then she herself even walked back certain things. This is not on the same level. This is a really in-depth, really detailed, like you said, like, bibliography of everything that happened. And I don't know, it's it really sucks that he had to go through this, because Mick Gordon's kind of a legend, you know? So
I would agree. I mean, I would say about Marty Stratton, it's like, Marty's been around for a long time. He's been at id for a very, very long time, and he's on the business and production side. It's just, he's not that important. No offense to this, like, why things are successful. He doesn't have his hands on the creation. He's a bean counter, and he's a spreadsheet dude, and that's great. Every company needs those, but it's not worth throwing your creatives under the bus to protect someone who is not a creative powerhouse at your studio. I will say this, though, and it's important, is we've not heard from id. It's, as Chris said, right. And this seems so dead to rights that it's almost too good, where I really do want to see, I'm sure they're counting or figuring out their situation behind the scenes and counting on a certain reaction that will be very supportive of Mick Gordon, because people get in a tizzy about everything that happens on the internet. And so they know they have to respond in some way. It does, and Bethesda does, and Microsoft might have to, as the owner of all these entities. And maybe there's more to the story. So I want to leave that open, because it seems so absurd. That the treatment of this dude, and just the negligence in the design of Doom Eternal itself, as if people had no idea how to make the game. And he says it himself. It's like, you're sending me vague gray box stages and even just concept art, and asking me to write music, when as you know, because you make Doom, that there's a rhythm to the music and the gameplay, and I need the final product basically, or at least an alpha front to back build of it so that I can play. And like, they wouldn't give him any of that. So it's amazing that the music even came out the way it did, considering it was written without context. So it blows open. It's not only the specific drama between Marty Stratton and Mick Gordon, which is in itself very interesting and worthy of following. It's this idea that it didn't make the game very, very smartly. And I think that that's something that I'm going to have to answer for as well. And I'm sure it's going to scare people off from working on with them too. And I felt a little bad for that Chad sound engineer dude that they were talking about, but I don't know. It seems like he was in between a rock and a hard place, maybe working on behalf of the publisher and kind of doing what he had to do or whatever. But it's clear that they were, or at least I don't want to say clear. It looks like they were lying to him, and we just have to wait to see more. I just want to be clear that we don't know all of this yet. I don't think.
Yeah.
Right.
Also, apparently, it should be noted that the Chad guy was on the panel that refused or that rejected a lot of this music, and then ends up being listed as a co-producer and co-writer of the music that he rejected.
Yeah,
so,
it's fucked. It's fucked.
It is very, very interesting, and I highly, I think all of us here would urge you to read this if you're even remotely interested, because it's not a slog. It is consistently interesting from start to finish, and it's just really, really detailed, really in depth. Go read it yourself. It's very, very interesting.
Nicholas wrote in and said, "Hey boys, what do you think about Mick Gordon's recent assertions that the narrative around the botched Doom Eternal OST was patently false? He claims to have been offered a six-figure sum to keep quiet and maintain that narrative, which he obviously rejected. Is there an amount of money you would accept to take the fall in a situation like this, or is integrity everything?" Cheers. I think that's an interesting point to be made. The answer is yes. I mean, there definitely is an amount of money that you can pay me to take the fall for something. That's not like illegal or something, but that was like, oh, there was a mistake here. Maybe I had a part to do with it, or I was a party to what was going on, but it really wasn't my fault. But it's all like, oh, this happens in the corporate world all the time. It's like people are just paid to go away, paid to disappear, paid to leave boards, paid to leave CEO positions and executive positions. So I feel like it would be very similar to just be gagged and say like, well, here's your money, but it clearly wasn't enough for him. He says six-figure sum. I think that could be $150,000 and that could be $800,000. And I feel like if it was more like $500,000 plus, he would have said so. So we get a better idea, I think, based on the framing of the conversation, that it's maybe lower six figures, and that's a lot of money. And depending on where you are in life or whatever, that might be worth taking. But integrity is everything, unless someone is really offering you a stupid deal. If someone's like, we made a really bad corporate decision and we're just going to blame it on you, here's $10 million. It's like, okay. Integrity. It's like, whatever, you fucking idiots, you giving me all this money. So I do think like you have to put yourself in that position and ask yourself what you would really do. But I give him a lot of credit for not taking the money and for not falling in line. And I think it was especially important for him to do that, because this wasn't just some, like I explained in my hypothetical, it wasn't just some happenstance. It had to do with his own talent and his own ability to deliver goods. So he has to fight. It's different, so it's it's not worth taking a low six-figure sum when you're not going to get work anymore, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Like they actively kind of harmed his ability to get work, and it's not even his fault, really. Based on all this stuff, it seems like he was pretty communicative early on that things didn't make sense the way they were going about it. So, yeah, absolutely. I don't know. I think it's just such a shitty. That sucks. I don't know, because he's so responsible for why Doom is so cool. Like, that's kind of the thing. It's like, this is 50%, arguably, the reason why this game is so popular and so big, and why it's, like, endured for so long. That game without the soundtrack is pretty good. But, like, that game with the soundtrack is fucking next level S tier shit. Like, both of them. So the idea that they would just... I don't know, it's so confusing. Like, why would you conduct business that way? It's so alien.
Yeah, especially because they make so much money on those games, and those games cost so much to make, that I would imagine the sound and the music, the scoring is a small percentage of that, even though it is so important, because it's like John Williams' score in Star Wars. Star Wars is a $200 million movie or whatever, but John Williams didn't need anything more than maybe a 0.5% of that to really do what he needed to do, plus whatever his royalties and his fees are.
Yeah.
So you don't, it doesn't need to, yeah, I'm sorry.
And the music of Star Wars is arguably, again, 50% of why that franchise has endured for so long. Like, right. I really think, I don't know, maybe in this industry or maybe in like entertainment in general, people really undervalue music.
Totally.
Or
art is generally undervalued.
Yeah, that is a good, potentially majority of your experience with a product. Halo is the same way. Like, I love Halo, but like that, there's no doubt in my mind that game would be like half as relevant as it is without that incredible, consistent soundtrack. Like, constantly. So, like, I don't know. It just seems wildly like the lack of self-preservation here. Just basic self-preservation and just basic morality in how you're treating your employees is just outstanding. I'm really excited to see like how, not excited in like a happy way, but I'm like just interested to see like what Bethesda says about this, or like what id says about this, or how they respond at all. Because if any of this, and I need to clarify, if any of this is true, Marty should absolutely be not at id, because this is just gross.
Yeah, I would agree. I would absolutely agree. And that's why I think that they have to be very deliberate in how they approach this, because you said if they answer, which I think is possible. I feel personally, and I think they probably know this, you have to have an answer for this, because if you don't, the next time you show any game from Bethesda, not just id, people are going to ask you. You have to. And if I were a journalist, I'd be like, I don't give a fuck about anything you're showing me. We're going to talk about this until we get some sort of statement about it. They know that. You know, the games journalists aren't even very good anymore, and I think that they would even be able to pierce this veil. So, all right, well, we'll see what happens. I think we need to wait to see more. Hopefully, we'll be able to touch on this in the coming weeks again. All right, I wanted to bring up this article from IGN that's making the rounds. It's getting a lot of drama, a lot of predictable sorts of writing, but I wanted to see what you guys thought about it. It's about Final Fantasy XVI. Now, there's been a brief Final Fantasy XVI media round recently where interviews and whatever are starting to pop up. PlayStation blog has one. I know 4Gamer and Famitsu, I think in Japan, had their own. This one is on IGN. I don't know how many more of them they're doing. I'm not reading or looking at any of these. I don't want to know anything about these games, or as little about them as possible. I mean, we all know a little bit about them. But I was pointed towards, as many people have been over the last week or so, this IGN article. What is it titled here? Let me scroll up real quick. It's called Exclusive. Final Fantasy XVI's developers open up about the Game of Thrones comparisons, side quests, and representation. All right, so we already know where we're going. I'm skipping all the Q&A about everything that has nothing to do with this particular question and going to this. IGN asks, and so Naoki Yoshi P, is answering this question. He's asked, in regards to diversity in the game, can we expect to see black characters in Final Fantasy XVI or people of color, non-white characters in parentheses, in general? To clarify a bit more, there's been discussion around the trailers to date featuring mostly white characters, and I wanted to get clarity on whether we can expect the final game to be more diverse. Okay, I have to say something about this before we even get into what Yoshi P says, and we can get into the analysis from there. Journalists have this very pernicious habit. It's not only in games media, but it's just everywhere. It happens in politics a lot too. I'm sure people notice this. There's been discussion around the trailers. Who? You? So then you report on yourself having the discussion on the trailers? Because I've been following Final Fantasy XVI since it was announced, and while I'm trying to not pay attention to the actual thematic themes and characters and all of that as best I can, I'm paying attention to the culture. I'm paying attention to the rhythms of the fan base and all the rest. I don't see anyone talking about this. I had never heard anyone say anything about the race of any of the characters in Final Fantasy XVI until I saw it in this article. So before we even get into what Naoki Yoshida says, we can't beg the question like that. It's who is saying that? Can you point to someone of any consequence that's saying that other than yourselves? So it's a false predicate from the beginning. I just want to point that out. But here's what Naoki Yoshida says, and I'll read it in its entirety. It's going to take a minute, but I want to give it a context. He says, this is a difficult question, but not one that was unexpected, seeing as diversity in entertainment has become a much discussed topic as of late. The answer I have, however, may end up being disappointing to some depending on individual expectations. Our design concept from the earliest stages of development has always heavily featured medieval Europe, incorporating historical, cultural, political, and anthropological standards that were prevalent at the time. When deciding on a setting that was best suited to the story we wanted to tell, the story of a land beset by the Blight, we felt that rather than create something on a global scale, it was necessary to limit the scope to a single landmass, one geographically and culturally isolated from the rest of the world in an age without airplanes, television, or telephones. Due to the underlying geographical, technological, and geopolitical constraints of the setting, Valisthea, I think that's how you say it, was never going to realistically be as diverse as, say, modern-day Earth, or even Final Fantasy XIV that has an entire planet and moon worth of nations, races, and cultures at its disposal. The isolated nature of this realm, however, does end up playing a large part of the story, and is one of the reasons this planet's fate, I can't say it, is tied to the rest of the world. Ultimately, we felt that while incorporating ethnic diversity was important, an over-incorporation into this single corner of a much larger world can end up causing a violation of those narrative boundaries we originally set for ourselves. The story we are telling is fantasy, yes, but it is also rooted in reality. Conversely, the Final Fantasy series of games have always inherently dealt with conflict and struggle, especially between the empowered and those used and are exploited by those privileged few, a prominent trend in human history. In a game that by design allows players to experience that conflict and struggle firsthand through dynamic, realistic battles, it can be challenging to assign distinctive ethnicities to either antagonist or protagonist without triggering audience preconceptions, inviting unwarranted speculation, and ultimately stoking flames of controversy. The best part of pulling inspiration directly from history, however, is that it allows us to revisit and re-examine our own past while also allowing us to create something new. In the end, we simply want to focus to be less on the outward appearance of our characters and more on who they are as people. People who are complex and diverse in their natures, backgrounds, beliefs, personalities, and motivations. People whose stories we can resonate with. Their diversity in Valisthea. Diversity that, while not all-encompassing, is synergistic with the setting we've created and is true to the inspirations from which we are drawing. I have to say that I'm not sure the way this is written and the use of IGN's parenthetical in their question recommends to me that these were written questions and written answers. I don't know if that's actually made clear elsewhere in the interview. So I want to make that really clear. That always allows you to better answer things. People always prefer to answer over email. And at IGN, we actually had a strict, we're not publishing your interview unless you do it in person or over the phone. I guess that might not be the case anymore, but I wanted to point that out because it is a very good answer and a very well thought out answer that is almost completely inarguable, which is why I try in reading some of the feedback he's gotten about it. It's just more anger for anger's sake, this race obsession that I just think a lot of the people that feel that way don't know that a lot of people don't agree with them. That if you are the race obsessed and diversity obsessed and all that, you are in a small minority, pardon the pun, of people. You don't speak for most creatives. You don't speak for most people that play games. And that's why I wanted to bring up, Chris, that it felt like the author was injecting their own conversation as the subject matter, which just seems so inartful. When you're supposed to be a journalist and you have access to this guy, feed him something and get a good answer out of him. He took a lemon and made lemonade out of it nonetheless. So I'm curious what you thought of his answer and if you think it's controversial or reasonable.
No, I think it's an amazing answer. It might be the best answer that I've seen to any question about this type of thing probably ever. Because it's not written in such a way that it's like, fuck your concern. You know what I mean? It's more like, no, I mean, these are the realities of the story that we're telling. This is the reality of the fiction. This is the reality of, the viability of storytelling, and this is the reality of the setting that we've chosen. And I think it's a really good answer. I don't know. This obsession is very bizarre to me because, I remember talking specifically about when Miles Morales came out, and I was like, oh, it's really cool. It is cool to see, the Puerto Rican flag and Puerto Rican culture in that game. And I remember feeling like, representation is cool. And I would that definitely heightened my enjoyment of that game more than it otherwise would have if that hadn't been there. But this notion that it must be there is confusing to me because it just seems like I've always come from the perspective of just like let artists do whatever they want to do. And if they want to do something like that, then by all means, don't let them not do, allow them to do it. And if they don't want to, that's fine as well. I just don't understand this notion that you're kind of pushing a narrative kind of for the sake of maybe boxing someone into a corner and just being like, hey, why, like, what's the diversity situation in this, with the expectation that it's going to be kind of like a foot in your mouth kind of thing, because people don't normally answer it that well, and then you get a really, really good answer, and then like how do they react to that? I don't know. I find the obsession very confusing. I understand that it's important in some ways, and I get representation is cool and that it matters, but like the idea that it should be enforced beyond, or that it should be enforced to a greater degree than artistic freedom and artistic merit and expression is baffling to me, and I can't really sympathize with it.
I know it's different for you and me because I'm a white man, although we were discussing on the recent episode if being Italian means that I'm technically a person of color, but you're 100 years ago the answer would have been yes, by the way, but you're Puerto Rican, and so there's a little, like you said with Miles and all this, there's a little bit of a different flavor for you in representation. And I know I say this from a place of so-called privilege, but I just don't see the point of looking for yourself in fiction. It's just, or I should say, making it be that you are looking for yourself aesthetically. I find a lot, like, let me just say that, Ellie is, I love Ellie. She's a different gender, different sexuality, different age, but I feel like I relate a little bit to her feelings and not her experiences, obviously, but the way she deals with the world and deals with people and all of that. And you find some, I don't know, kinship there with this character. And if the case is that if the case is that you need a black character as a black gamer to identify with the most, then what that I don't see it that way. I just feel like you should be able to identify with the character or identify with the story or whatever, regardless of what's happening. And he says something really, really important in here. And it has to do with incorporating, he says, historical, cultural, political, and anthropological standards that were prevalent at the time. It's also important to note that this is fiction. I mean, beyond all of that, I've been playing, and we'll talk about it in a little while, Trails of Cold Steel, as I've been talking about for almost a month now. And I was looking at the characters. And Dustin, let me throw it over to you on this one, because you play these games along with me, these kinds of Japanese games. But it's like there's a character in the game from another land, and he's like, he looks maybe Hispanic, like slightly tanner than all the other characters. But when I'm looking at them, I'm like, are they even white? Like, what is this place? They're anime characters. If you made them into human looking things, they wouldn't even be proportional. They'd look like fucking monsters. It's, in other words, we're relating to characters and to all these things that aren't even truly human or artistically rendered as being anything more than humanoid. And yet we can have deep relationships with the portrayal of those fictional characters and their worlds and their stories. I just find this obsession over real world things in fiction to be kind of counterintuitive, because the idea is that you're supposed to be able to do whatever you want. And I don't see why we're so eager to hold people back. And like Chris said, do you think that they were answering this question in hopes that they were going to be able to put it in their headline? I've been there. So the answer is yes. And it asks what the purpose is at all.
Yeah, I think that, like you said earlier, that this doesn't really matter to most people. You know, this comes from the mindset of like Twitter is real life type people. And I really like, one of my favorite parts of his response is his Don Matrick answer, where he's like, well, if we also have a product that has a lot of diversity, it's called Final Fantasy XIV. Like, he's ready to go. And it's true. Like, you can, if you want to be a furry in that game and have cat ears and stuff, you can do that. You can be whoever you want. And that's great, right? Especially it's important for, I think, a game, an MMO, where you're building your own character and telling your own story. And this Final Fantasy 16, it's not like that. They have a very clear intent and story to tell, and I think we'd have a different conversation if the game comes out and there's tons of racist undertones in the game that shed racism in a positive light or something like that. Totally different conversation. But the lack of diversity doesn't mean that, you know, this game isn't trying or is trying to tell a message or something like that. It's like, no, it's just trying to tell the story they want to tell. They made it very clear for the reasons why they're doing that, and they are perfectly sound. And so the reality is this doesn't matter, because I'm sure the game is going to do just fine without it, and the people that are complaining will also still buy the game and enjoy it.
I'm sorry, do you have something to say, Chris?
Well, I did want to just bring it because I do want to just clarify. It's not because I know there are some people who feel like this way, but I do feel like this is limited to a Twitter mob. I think it's possible to appreciate representation without being like, oh, it's not good if it doesn't have it, or it's only good if it has it. You know what I mean? Like, I think there's like a very obvious place to exist. And from, you know, it wasn't that I liked Spider-Man Miles Morales only because it happened to include that aspect. I appreciated it from the aspect of it's New York City. There are more Puerto Ricans in New York City than there are in Puerto Rico. And the fact that, you know, New York is a very popular setting in a lot of, you know, especially video games. And the fact that it was that was the first game that I had seen that really was kind of, you know, that was like, oh, interesting. You had like smaller examples, like there are like side characters in like Grand Theft Auto 4, obviously, because, you know, it's in New York. But there was something cool about that, and I do, and for me, it comes from a more of the perspective of Spanish is usually Mexican in all media, basically. Like even in New York, there was like, when I was growing up, people were like, "Oh, are you Mexican?" I'm like, "You're crazy. You're actually insane to think that living here." But so it's nice to see just different types of Spanish, and it's nice to see just like different inflections and different flavors of the language that, you know, when it makes sense. I'm not saying that like, oh, Skyrim. I want to see like, I don't want to see like some guys like, hey, you know, I don't need my Puerto Rican uncle in Skyrim. But
right
in modern New York City, it is cool to see that, and it does make sense. It fits. They did it well, and that's worth celebrating. I think. I don't think it would change the review score of the game for me. Like from like, oh, it's 0.1%, it's 0.1 score higher because it has I don't think it would really change that much. But I just want to clarify, because like I feel like the group of people that talks about this can sometimes be represented as like a really big mass of people who only care about diversity and representation, as long as, like, you know, as so much as it means that it contributes to the overall quality of the game, in the sense that like, oh, it's not good. And I just want to put a voice out there that says like, no, you can appreciate it and even think it's a great thing and think it's a really cool thing without being so clouded that you can't appreciate anything that doesn't abide by those rules.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny, you're clarifying. I feel like I want to clarify as well. When I say it doesn't matter, I don't mean I'm totally. I like Chris. I'm totally in agreement with you. I just meant in this for this game. Totally. Like, it doesn't matter. It's insane. Yeah. But
well, what you're talking about, like, I actually don't think it matters. I think what matters is because what Chris is describing, I think, is authenticity. So if you're making a game set in Africa, I would assume everyone would be black, unless it was in South Africa or something like that, in which case most people would be black. Or if you're setting a game in Spain, those Moorish roots would have people with darker skin than maybe if you were setting a game in Scotland. Although in modern day Scotland, there are plenty of black people and Asian people and all the rest. So maybe you want to incorporate that. In other words, it's about the authenticity of the situation. It's not about diversity for diversity's sake. And I've always said that. I don't think that doesn't play a purpose. And I feel like he says something really interesting, Yoshi P does, which is the quote that I think people should be circulating if they weren't looking for outrage. He says, conversely, the Final Fantasy series of games have always inherently dealt with conflict and struggle, especially between the empowered and those used and are exploited by those privileged few, a prominent trend in human history. That's like a really deep thing that he just said. And instead of delving in deeper into that particular thing, oh, so you're talking about class struggle. You're talking about the haves and the have-nots. You're talking about monarchy, dictatorship, corporations. All you want to talk about to this guy is race? Are you fucking crazy? The guys that gave us Shinra and Kefka and all these crazy, you know, Gestal and you know, Bannon and not Bannon, Banon's the healer in Final Fantasy VI. So I'm thinking of Baron is the city in Final Fantasy IV. I'm thinking of Steve Bannon. Gave us Steve Bannon. Who's the bad guy in Golbez in Final Fantasy IV? That's what I'm thinking of. And you can think about how all these guys are corrupted by power and corrupted by money and corrupted by whatever. Final Fantasy VI, of course, being, I think, one of the deepest stories ever told in a video game. I think it's an amazing story about a lot of different things. And these guys are choosing to waste this man's time asking him about people's skin color. And I just think it's so reductive. And I think we're seeing, I mean, in the United States, we're on the verge of affirmative action being outlawed. And this whole obsession over, race being removed from the public square. And I think that that's what a lot of people want. And I think that it's like you said, it's cool to I've said this a million times. You can focus on any aspect of a game. You can make a whole documentary series about race in Final Fantasy if you want to. All I'm asking you is that really what it's about? And do you really need Cloud to be Filipino in order to relate to his story if you're Filipino? Or is it maybe his social struggle that is appealing to maybe 99% of the world, regardless of what your skin color is? I think this almost level of, it's just race obsession. It's crazy. And I've said it before. I'm 38. I'm older than you guys. I know people can say X, Y, or Z, but there just wasn't this obsession when I was a kid on this stuff. It wasn't like this, man. It just, we felt more futuristic in 1995 than we do now, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, even when I was a kid, there wasn't really this either, to be quite frank. Like, it's a very recent, I think when I got out of college, I started seeing it a lot more. And I was just like, what the fuck is going on?
This just brings me back also to Kingdom Come Deliverance and the whole drama about that, about how they made a game in Bohemia, I think in like the 1100s or something. And people are like, where are the black people? And it's like, well, there are no black people. And then I remember someone like Arthur Geese or one of these old games media guys like made some case for how there could have been like a black traveler in Bohemia from like the Silk Road or something. And it's like, dude, shut up. Like, can't people just think about what you're saying before you say it, and just let people do their thing? And it's so funny because Kingdom Come Deliverance is one of those examples of a game doing really, really well. I think one of the first games that did really, really well based on people just wanting to stick it to all the people that tried to tear it down. And we've seen examples of that since. So anyway, shout out to Yoshi P. Thanks IGN for the interview. What was that? I just heard a noise. Did anyone else hear that? I heard a noise that was like a bling. Maybe I'm having a stroke. Maybe I'm having a stroke. I don't know.
I will say that's a good answer, though. This is a really good answer.
It is.
That he gave. So.
It is. All right. Couple more things. Returnal on PC still hasn't been acknowledged or announced, although Housemarque talked about it at a GDC speech a few months ago. We know it's coming. It's been in Steam DB and people have been scraping it. The name has been officially turned from the code name, which I think was Oregon, to Returnal. So this is coming. I don't know when. Maybe it'll be announced at the VGAs or something. Death Stranding has surpassed 10 million players, according to Kojima Productions. This is exciting, although irrelevant in some way, because it's on Game Pass now. It's just, that's not impressive if people are just downloading it based on a subscription. So we're getting into those muddled numbers. I think sales numbers are still the most important thing. Lionsgate, according to IndieWire, is looking to create a John Wick game. Dustin, I've only seen the first John Wick. I really liked it a lot. I haven't seen the others. What, do you think we need a John Wick? There is already a John Wick video game that Bithell Games did, John Wick Hex, but they're talking about a AAA, presumably maybe third-person shooter style or action game. Do you think that a John Wick game is something we want?
I think it has the potential to be awesome. Like, ideally, I would want a John Wick game to be like Max Payne 3. Just like total balls to the wall action, add in some bullet time, stuff like that. They gotta get Keanu Reeves, though. I think that's probably an essential part of that, to make sure that they have him in it, maybe have him do mocap and the voice work and stuff like that. This could be cool, though. John Wick is huge. It's been away for a few years now. They're doing a new John Wick movie, so yeah, why not? John Wick is pure popcorn fun, so it could be a cool game too.
How do you feel about that, Chris? Do you want a John Wick game, or a John Wick AAA game?
No. I like John Wick a lot. I like those movies like a ton. But this is kind of getting into the territory of, well, don't we already have, like, is it possible to get the experience of John Wick in a video game? And the answer is yes, because we've had John Wick style video games for a very, very long time. And you brought up Max Payne 3. I would argue even Max Payne 1 and 2. I would argue
Sure.
like, you know, John, like what is it, John Woo's Stranglehold, which is like old, like a really weird cut. But I just feel like it's unnecessarily bringing some random other like television or movie IP into the gaming space where it can't really offer anything particularly unique. Like, you know, John Wick is an action movie, and we already have so many. I don't even like. I just don't know what would be there to offer video games outside of just Keanu Reeves' meme-worthy appearance.
I disagree though, because like imagine if like the different bosses where that you could build up a lore around the assassins and I'm trying to remember the name of the hotel. And there's like the coins and stuff.
Remember.
I feel like the like Nemesis system type thing.
Yeah,
I don't know if it would be open world, but
yeah,
I don't know. I think there's cool ideas.
It could be cool. It's just generally speaking, I'm just kind of like, even that Indiana Jones game by Machine Games, I'm kind of like, I kind of wish they were doing something else. Like, I don't know. I don't feel particularly positive about every new game that comes out being based on an existing property. You know what I mean? Like, even I know we talked a lot about Marvel and like Star Wars and stuff, but now we're getting into John Wick, and then like, I don't know. I don't think it's the worst idea. I think it could work, but I just don't know. I don't know if it would really stand out in any real way. They would have to do something really, really balls to the wall and really out of the ordinary. And I just don't. I think it's easier said than done.
I think you're right in the sense that there is a parallel Keanu Reeves series in The Matrix that they just never really were able to make a great video game out of. I remember that.
Yeah.
There was that 2003 game from Atari, I think, that was
Enter the Matrix.
Yeah, that was totally half baked. I remember being at IGN as an intern, my first time as an intern there, and people were playing it and just making fun of it and just being like, this game is clearly just not done. Just totally empty rooms and empty spaces and
yeah,
and all the
game
rest.
Was so green. I remember playing that game. Like it was like one of the first games I had for my Xbox, and I remember playing. It's like, this is the greenest game I've ever seen. Like, it is so damn green the whole time. Like I would get sick playing it.
Did you guys have the I remember my Sony Vaio. Well, you guys were young when Matrix came out, but I had I downloaded the screensaver that was the Matrix screen, and I was so excited.
I had that
about
on my desktop, like the screensaver that would do that. That was sick.
What a movie! I love that movie. I love that movie more, I think, as I get older. I don't know. But yeah, as far as John Wick is concerned, you're right. I think you're right, Chris, that it's going to be tough to imagine a situation where they're able to replicate the action, the kind of I don't know, man, that movie is so stylish. And if you're playing as someone and you want them to experience that style, then you're going to kind of have to funnel them into moments, which doesn't seem quite like the way we want to play games today.
Yeah, I feel like I feel like John Wick is so cool because it almost, like, when you're watching it, it almost feels like how you feel when you play a video game. So like translating it, like, it's just like, it's so like fast and frenetic, and there's like all these like it's almost like trick shots. You know what I mean? Like whenever you see those Call of Duty compilations and people like do like a spin when they're jumping off a roof and then they snipe somebody, or they throw a throwing knife over a building and it like hits some guy. I feel like that's the feeling that it captures, but at the same time, like, you're kind of like reverse engineering that feeling now into a video game, and I don't know. It would take a really, 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 really incredible studio to do that, I think. And you're better off just making an action game. You know?
I agree. I want new things too.
Me too.
Yeah. I just don't think. I don't know. We'll talk more about this in a little while, I think. All right, Mass Effect 4. It was N7 Day recently, November 7th, which is of course the annual so-called celebration of Mass Effect. And they released an N7 Day 2022 post over on BioWare's blog at blog.bioware.com. And they also released, I don't know, a few other things, like some video on Twitter that you can download like a higher res version of this thing. Video Games Chronicle wrote it up, and you guys can go read more about it. But I don't know. I'm just Well, let's get right into this listener inquiry. I think we have it here. Where is it? Yeah, Walter Boley says, "Yo, sacred redacted. Thank you. Another November 7th has come and gone, and with it, another vague tease for yet the next Mass Effect. Are we doomed to another 4 years of November 7th teases for a game that will undoubtedly disappoint? Is BioWare helping or hurting perception of Mass Effect with these infrequent teases? I've always agreed with the marketing strategy of saying nothing until you really can really say something. What are your thoughts? Thanks for the content, dudes, and hope you are all staying healthy." Dustin, EA is obviously doing this thing now, as I've noted in the past, and it's just becoming more and more obvious that they're developing games in public. And they're doing this with Skate, they're doing this with Dragon Age and others, and are making very public proclamations, as we'll talk about. Actually, I'll just say right now, EA noting that they're going to shut down Codemasters' Project Cars franchise as they've absorbed the company and have them working on F1 and all the rest. So we don't even need to bring that up. They're just making a lot of public proclamations, a lot of promises, showing a lot of things in development work, art, introducing teams and all the rest. And I see what they're doing, but I just think with Mass Effect in particular, you might want to go away now for a little while. I know I'm also fascinated. So apparently what they teased was something that might have to do with, people are saying like maybe it's like Liana saying something and maybe referring to Shepard. And it's like, how are you going to do that? I don't understand how you're going to retcon this thing, but there's a lot of the questions to answer. And I think the best way to answer those questions is to answer them when you're ready, instead of teasing us and introducing us to team members and stuff. It's like, dude, let's go. Come on. It's been 10 years since Mass Effect 3. We're over it in some way. Like revive our excitement when the time comes.
Right. Well, it's one of those situations where they're kind of damned if they do, damned if they don't. They've already let the genie out of the bottle that they're working on this game while they're wasting their time. I mean, working on Dragon Age or whatever. So they kind of, I feel like if they don't say anything, especially on November 7th, people are going to say, where's Mass Effect? Is the game in trouble? Because, you know, saying nothing is bad to some people, saying something is also bad. You know what I mean? They should have just not said anything at all. But it was a really nice PR boost at the time when they needed it, and it also probably helped the sales of the Legendary Edition that they released a few years ago. So I kind of understand why they did it, but I don't know. To me, I can take it or leave it. Something like this is not going to move the needle or make me more or less excited. I saw it that there was some kind of thing, and then I was like, oh, well, there's really nothing quite yet, so I'm just going to move along. But I'm sure some people were very excited with a small update, but it doesn't do much for me.
How about you, Chris? By the way, it's confirmed that in that video clip that they shared on Mass Effect's Twitter channel or Twitter account and other social channels, that there's like a conversation going on between the Geth and Liara, and I don't know. I just, since they're gonna have to retcon this thing somehow, since Mass Effect 3 is so final, at least that's not how I don't know. Maybe I'm misremembering it, but I'm pretty sure it's like a pretty final conclusion to the story. So, no matter what you do, so. I don't know. I'm curious, but the teases, it's just like, whatever, man. Do we even really need more Mass Effect? Can't we just leave it alone now?
Yeah, that's kind of how I'm feeling about most things. I feel like, what's that phrase? I think it was like, was it Batman? I can't remember where it's from. It was like, you either die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become
the villain, right?
I feel like that happens with a lot of franchises that just sort of refuse to die. You know? And it's just kind of, I feel like that happened with Ghostbusters as well, where it's like, Jesus Christ, like, just let it go. Like, let it die.
Truly.
So ironic.
Truly.
It was ironic at the time because it was just Ghostbusters. And I thought it was funny that like a movie series about ghosts refused to die. But now it's everything. Now it's like, you know, Mass Effect is coming back, and it's like, do we need it? Like, I feel like I got what I needed out of Mass Effect, and I really enjoyed it, and it was awesome, and that's where it will stay. I don't need more of it, because all you do when you come back to something like that is you risk damaging how people feel about the old stuff. Like, it's you know, Mass Effect 3 already kind of was received kind of, in my opinion, unfairly, poorly.
Agreed.
But yeah, I remember that was like one of the first articles I saw from you.
Yeah, I gave it a 9.
What do you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, he's totally right. But I think I don't know. I just feel like we need to be a lot more comfortable letting things go. Just generally speaking, as this is a greater conversation than just the games industry, but just like in general, like, do we need a Space Jam 2? Like, did we need that really? Did we really need the Clockwork Orange rapists to be watching Bugs Bunny and like play basketball with his Looney Tunes friends? Like, did we need that really? We arguably didn't even need it the first time.
No.
So I wish we could just be a little bit more comfortable, but there's, now we live in a world where it's just companies are now very, very aware of how much money exists in IP and how many people are loyal to those IP. And it's impossible. Like, once someone's going to pay $10 for a hamburger, you're not going to stop selling hamburgers. You're going to keep making those hamburgers. So it's like, fuck it. This is where we are now. I think I'm at a point where I'm comfortable just putting a stake in the ground. Like, I liked the MCU. Endgame happened. Cool. It's done. Flag planted. I'm done with that. Like, I don't care. There's nothing new that they could do that could ruin the cool experience that I had with it, but I'm also just disengaged. And I feel like that's kind of how I feel with Mass Effect, especially after Andromeda. I thought there might have been something special there, but obviously not. So let's keep going. Let's get a new sci-fi space opera going from someone else, or even BioWare themselves. Maybe make something else.
That's why I was going to say, like, you can do more space without doing Mass Effect. You can do something else now. You
could argue that Mass Effect actually limits them in what they could try, because everybody's going to be expecting something akin to the old games, which is like, outdated game design. It's good game design. It's really cool, but it's also, if you have a new Mass Effect, it's going to have to adhere in some way to the structure of the old ones. And like, wouldn't you rather see, I don't know, like a space series that's new with new mechanics and a new framework and new and a new score and a new identity? And I would, but then they fucked it up because they tried that with Anthem. They made Anthem. That's what they chose for their new space thing. And now they're running back to it's like, all you had to do was do a single player thing again. And people would have ate it up. I would have been right there alongside them, probably. Because I think BioWare is a good studio, or like, at least they were capable of making really, really solid single player adventures. And I think they could be again, potentially, maybe. But we'll never know that unless they try something else.
We will see in the coming years, both with Mass Effect and Dragon Age, as Dustin brought up. Waiting for that as well, and very openly talking about that as well. But yeah, I can't care about any of this right now. There's just too many other games to care about right now. Maybe I'll care. Maybe I'll care a great deal when we see it and it's time, but not now. No way, man. No way. All right, quick news about Take-Two. Take-Two, for their financial report for the last quarter came out. They took a pretty big loss, but a lot of that is attributed to their acquisition of Zynga and other stuff. I wanted to point these numbers out, though. Grand Theft Auto 5 has now surpassed 170 million copies sold. 170 million copies sold. NBA 2K23 has 2 million active users every day. And Red Dead Redemption 2 is at 46 million units sold now. So just a few things out of Take-Two, if anyone's interested. Also, GamesIndustry.biz reports this. It actually comes from Axios, but they have just a little reduction here of it. So there's a new law in New York City that forces those corporations and other entities putting up job applications or job listings, let's say, they have to actually say what they're going to pay you. Now, I've never actually applied for a real job in my entire life. I have to be honest with you. So I don't know exactly what's going on out there, but as I understand it, people are kind of going into a lot of job interviews blind or getting kind of the rug pulled out from under them as far as promises made on, financial and economic promises made to them as they're going through the process and what they're offered. So this law of transparency in New York City is designed to force corporations to just be very upfront about what the pay structure would be. And so because Rockstar and Epic run out of New York City, Epic obviously is based in North Carolina, but they have a New York City office. Rockstar is all over the world and obviously headquartered in Britain, San Diego, and other places as well. But because they're in New York City, they fall under these parameters for job listings that are going to be hired within the realm of the city. And so we have job number or ranges, for salaries for these jobs. And so I just thought it would be interesting to give people an idea of what people are making, how much money people are making. I think this will give people a better idea of how much games cost or why they don't cost as much as you think, et cetera, and so on. So Rockstar has the highest paid listing right now is for a product lead, which pays between $163,000 and $184,000 a year. And their lowest was an associate dialogue designer, which falls between $50,000 and $57,000 a year. And then in Epic Games, they have listings for content policy and operations between $159,000 and $206,000, and Unreal Engine senior product managers falling between $187,000 and $242,000. Dustin, what do you think about these numbers here? Is good salaries, but it's as I tell people over and over again when I do my back of the envelope math about game devs and I say $100,000 per head. People can see why I always say that that's a very, very conservative approach, because in reality, no one is making $100,000 a year when it comes to your cost at the corporate within the building and what you're paying for that, your healthcare, your perks and all the rest. So it's a pretty conservative range when I say $100,000 per head per year. You can see here it's much higher than that. I'm curious how these numbers strike you.
Yeah, I mean, especially with the Rockstar ones, make sense to me. And I think it's important to also note that I'm assuming these don't include bonuses of when titles release, which we've heard are obviously very, very high. But yeah, it turns out if you're really smart and know how to code and do like a senior product manager types, I guess that's not coding, but these positions in games, they pay well. So if you can work your way up the structure, you're looking at well over $100,000, which is great.
Chris, how are you feeling about these numbers? Or are they in line with your understanding of the industry?
Yeah, I mean it's pretty good. It makes sense to me that also New York City would demand a little bit more. It's expensive to live in New York City. So, it makes I don't know. I don't know. It's been a while since I've worked a normal job, but I will say I remember going to interviews and being told the pay was going to be one thing, and then it was actually something much, much less desirable. I remember going to places that would refuse to tell you until you got in, until you got the position. They would tell you, like,
what?
Which is wild.
For real?
Yeah, for real. I remember
That's
I had it's real. It's insane. This is a long time ago. This is like 2011. But I remember specifically getting a job at this place, and then they were like, "Hey, we can't." So it's $7.25, but we can only have you on like 5 hours, 5 to 10 hours a month. And I'm like, I'm not doing that. It's like a waste of my time.
That's fucked, man.
Yes, but I didn't know that until I got the job, and so it was just like it was very, granted it was minimum wage at the time, but it's like it's astounding to me that this isn't standard practice. Like, it's amazing to me that New York is the only place that does this, or like as of late, because this should be basic information that should be available to everybody looking for jobs in the first place. You should have a basic understanding of like what it is you're going to be paid if you apply for something, because applying takes time out of your day. It also sometimes for places it costs money to apply. So I don't know. It bothers me that this is not just how things work. That a lot of people are just kind of out there flying blind, because I remember how frustrating that was. And I kind of had assumed that something had been done about that. But the fact that I guess it's newsworthy today means that it is not. And this is actually a very special situation. So, yeah, I don't know.
To me, I've said this before, but I want to reiterate that I think that it's really healthy and important. And I agree with this idea of people should be sharing what they make with each other more often. There's a time and a place for everything. You don't want to just be at family dinner and be like, "Hey, Bill, what's Intel paying you?" There's a time and place of it being appropriate, but like coworkers and peers, people in the same industry, whatever, should be sharing more openly what they make, because it allows a baseline to be set, and then it keeps everyone honest. Because the reality is an IGN operated like this, and a lot of others operated like this as well, was to try to keep people as ignorant as possible about what everyone else was making, so that no one would ask for more money or not have these different expectations. But the reality is that if we all knew what each other was making, we all would have been paid more, because we all could have simply demanded more as some sort of unit. You don't have to unionize, in other words, to and if you want to unionize, it's fine, but if you don't have to leverage your power as some sort of collective unit. And I think sharing salary information with each other within enterprises and within industries, I think is actually pretty important. And there's just a faux pas about it. But if people can just put their feelings away and not take things personally one way or the other and just have the knowledge, then I think that actually is a tide that raises all boats, because you'd probably embarrass the fuck out of certain companies. You'd probably get certain companies on the line for litigation for all sorts of different biases that are planted. You know, it's like you have nothing but things to gain by that's why I just think it's like the most fascinating trick that corporate America has played on its workforce is no, you don't tell anyone what you make.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Why? Why do you think they want you to not tell anyone what you make? It's like no one has sat down since after World War II when this all began and was like, why is this happening? And it's happening because, you know, you gotta be more upfront about things. That's why even private union structures are interesting, because it's like, well, you get hired at this rate and here's what you make, and after 2 years you make this, and it's just like a total illustration and everyone knows what everyone else is making. And it actually also happens on sports teams. I often think about, if you're Aaron Rodgers, who makes, I don't know, $40 million a year, something insane, right? Like literally. And then the league minimum in the NFL, I think, is like $500,000 a year. So there's plenty of players on that team making 1/80th what Aaron Rodgers is making, but they all know what Aaron Rodgers is making. It's not a secret. I don't know. Can't we all just be adults? I think it'll benefit everyone else. But anyway, I wanted to point that out. We'll keep an eye out for that moving forward. Glassdoor is another great place to go if you want to just scour that kind of information if you're curious. Maybe a lot of you guys aren't. I don't know. Just a couple of quick VR notes. Variety reports, although this comes from all sorts of sources now, that Meta, Facebook parent company that's also involved in the metaverse and is a primary rival of PlayStation VR with their Oculus headsets, their Quest headsets, laid off 14% of their workforce, 11,000 people.
That's crazy.
Now, I'm just saying this is related because they're having problems, and I think, as we noted, a lot of it comes from the metaverse, which is deeply entrenched with Quest and all of the rest. But Sony's primary competition is not moving and shaking right now. I think this is a good sign for Sony. Hate to be so cutthroat, but you could be able to take advantage of some inefficiencies and some bad morale and all the rest at Meta as you're moving into your launch of PSVR 2. So I wanted to point that out as well, on the back of a Stranger Things VR game being announced for all VR platforms, or all major VR platforms. So it doesn't specifically name PSVR, but there's that coming as well. And I just want to say this about Meta. I mean, you hate to see people get laid off and lose their jobs. 11,000 people is 14% of their workforce. That's what was let go. I don't even know how 11,000 people work at Meta. I don't understand how these companies get so big. I think sometimes you have to look back and be like, what are you doing with all of these people? And when you have reductions of 10, 20, 30, 50%, it just goes to show you how inefficient these businesses are and how so many of these companies have no idea what they're doing. Just no idea. Just flying blind and playing with people's fucking livelihoods in the process, flippantly. Like, that's so shit. I saw a thing with, and I know things happen, but I saw a video with Zuckerberg, who obviously is the CEO and still the majority owner or controlling owner of the company. And he was like, I take responsibility and it's my fault we grew too fast and stuff. And it's like, well, I appreciate the buck stopping with you, and I think that's really cool, but what are you doing? I don't understand what any of these companies are doing. Why do you have to have so many people working for you? Headcount is this mirage, man. I don't know. I don't get it. Anyway, a couple more pieces of news. Our friends at Windows Central wrote, Jez Corden over there, report Diablo IV could be launching in April 2023 with pre-orders going live in December. So apparently this is happening maybe to be announced at the Game Awards. We already know that there's a closed beta going on, maybe an alpha, I don't know, for Diablo 4. People are leaking it. I don't care about this game at all, but I know this game is going to be huge for lots and lots of people. I'm sure that Xbox will love to have the deal done to get this thing on Game Pass, et cetera, and so on. I don't think it's going to be done in time. In fact, that has actually fallen deeper down the regulation rabbit hole, I think, in Europe. So it looks even less likely that it's going to happen, although I think it's still likely to happen. But Dustin, let's start with you. Diablo 4. Are you interested, and will you play it if and when it comes to PS5 in April of 2023?
Hell yeah, but not on PS5. Sorry. Diablo, this is a PC game. I know that the console versions are good. I've heard that. I actually played Diablo 3 a bit on Switch of all places, and it was really fun. But this will be a day one PC purchase. Maybe not day one. I'm a little skeptical about this game, especially skeptical of Blizzard as a whole right now to be able to be competently release a product. So it's one I'm very interested in. Not pre-ordering though, but hopefully playing this, and hopefully it's good. I'm really excited. Love Diablo.
Chris?
Yeah, I mean, I like it. I've never loved it. I had a really good time actually playing Diablo 3 co-op on console with friends of mine back when it was not new, but when it was newer and playable. Because there was a point where Diablo 3 did not launch well. But yeah, I don't know. I'll check to see how it shakes up. I'm wait for some reviews and impressions, and maybe I'll pick it up. I don't know. I'm not super stoked on it. Not only just because of Blizzard as of late, but just because I feel like, I don't know, I feel like with Diablo Immortal as well, that mobile game, like I'm a little skeptical of their design chops. Not just because the company itself is mired in controversy constantly, but because I wonder if they'll be able to pull it off. I know some people who, by the way, really into Diablo Immortal, but like it's very much not my cup of tea. And if Diablo 4 is anything like it, probably not gonna jump on the train.
Final piece of news before we get into what we're playing is so-called information on Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time. So this remake, the Sands of Time remake for Prince of Persia, was announced, I think, back in 2020 to come out in 2022 or 2023. And this was under development at an Indian Ubisoft company, or Ubisoft developer, I think Ubisoft Pune, I think it's called. I think that's how you say it. And this game was apparently in such bad shape that they're just not releasing it. And I was reading something, I haven't heard anything but that conclusively with that, there might even be metadata suggesting that this game was certified, that they're like literally just not releasing it because it's bad. And so just to give people a little bit of background, Prince of Persia began with Broderbund in like 1989, but in 2001-ish, Ubisoft bought it from Broderbund, and then they relaunched Prince of Persia, and The Sands of Time was the first of 3 games on PlayStation 2 that came out within a 3-year period for this new Prince of Persia. Ubisoft had announced that they're remaking that first one, The Sands of Time, from 2003. And so what they say on their website here is that it's been moved from this kind of fringe Ubisoft studio to the core Ubisoft studio in Montreal, the guys responsible for Assassin's Creed, or a lot of Assassin's Creed games, a lot of the Far Cry games, et cetera, and so on. And that there are no other plans for any other remakes at this point in time. There's nothing to say about a date. And the game doesn't have a release date. Existing pre-orders have been canceled. Refunds will be provided if you did pre-order the game. And there'll be pre-orders again once the game is re-announced. And what people are kind of bubbling about on social media and some spaces is that this game is just, being completely overhauled. I wouldn't be surprised if there was a story out about this in the coming months about what went wrong here. But just wanted to point that out. I don't think there's anything else to say. Very strange situation, though, going on with that game. Okay, let's get into what we're playing. I'm going to do the unusual thing of beginning and going first just to get out of the way. So all I've played the last week is The Legend of Heroes Trails of Cold Steel. I beat it last night. I am an A0 student, which means I am the highest ranking student. I got enough AP, or the points for doing all my tasks. So I think I only missed 2 points the entire game, and there are 440, I think, and you need 430 to get that AO student rank. So that was cool. And I beat the game, did all the rest last night, and clocked in at about 65 hours, pretty tightly recorded, as I'm obsessive with my clocks and video games, as people know. So that was very much accurate. And I already have I bought Trails of Cold Steel 2 and downloaded it. It was half off. It was $20. I think it's on sale right now. So that was kind of serendipitous. And I just want to give a shout out to this game. I think Maddie and I are actually going to sit down and do a spoiler cast and review discussion about it, even though it came out 7 years ago or something, just to talk about it. I spent so much time with it, and I highly recommend it. I think the game really drastically changes towards the end too. It becomes very different in some ways. I think it goes a little far in some of the things that it does, but it's very, very good. If you're into JRPGs, I've already talked about it extensively. I'll keep my in-depth thoughts for the podcast that we do, but just wanted to point out that, I finally got that out of the way. And so now I can move on to the other games I want to play. God of War and Tactics Ogre, which comes out tomorrow from when we're recording this, and I don't know which one I'm going to start with. What I know is that when football's on, I need to use my PS5 to play Sunday Ticket. And so at that point, I won't be able to play anything, but otherwise I'll probably be playing on my backbone when I'm watching football games. So I don't know if God of War is, I don't even know if I'm going to get to God of War and be able to beat it in a timely manner, but that's my hope. So with that said, let's kick it over to you guys. Chris, let's start with you.
Yeah, so I finished a Plague Tale Requiem. Very good. I don't think, I don't know. I feel really, really iffy about it once it ended. I was like, yeah, this was a solid stealth game, but every time it stopped being a stealth game, I felt myself getting frustrated. There's a lot of moments where you're kind of forced into combat, and it does this thing. I think it thinks it's cute with like the subversion of expectations thing, where it's like they'll throw like more enemies at you than you can manage, and then you'll think to yourself, it's like, this is fucked up. Like I can't beat this, and so you just sort of get into this weird rhythm, and then it turns out, oh, you were supposed to fail because it's a narrative. That. It's a narrative story driven, and I hate that shit. I really don't like it. I don't even know why. Really, it really bothers me when a game tries to subvert my expectations in that way, especially when it does it over and over again. The game does this a lot, and it'll do that thing too where you're hurt and you can't use your equipment or whatever, or you're arbitrarily slow. I felt like there are some certain points where I didn't know where, like in older games, I think about like Gears of War, and there were moments where you would kind of put your hand up to your head, and then for those moments you were slow because conversation was happening. And then the second that would stop, you would be fast again. But in this game, like I was never sure when I could run, or like how fast the sprint speed was, or like, I don't know, there were certain things like towards the end that started to kind of like loosen up a little bit for me. I don't think it's particularly, I wouldn't say this is like game of the year or anything, but it's very good for the majority of it. Like I would say like 80% of the time I had a really good time with it, but that 20% of the time when I wasn't enjoying it, it's pretty intense. I was pretty frustrated. You look like you were going to say
I was going to ask you if you felt like it was slightly too long. Like I felt like it just needed, it could have shaved like 3 or 4 hours off.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit long in the tooth. I think it ends very abruptly also. Which I thought was, like,
the ending is
bizarre.
weird.
It felt both too long and also like it cut itself off. It's a very bizarre.
That's a good way to put it.
Game. But, if you're really into stealth games, it's kind of hard not to recommend this one because it's literally the only thing available. But I'd still say the story's really good. I'd still say that the cast of characters is really good. I think the acting is really fucking tremendous, even if the character models don't necessarily align with it. It's the problem I had the whole time where I was just like, there are certain points where they look so dead. It's weird. But solid game. Finished it just in time for God of War. I finished it 2 hours before God of War went live. But before I get into God of War, I'm playing a little bit of Modern Warfare 2 because a friend of mine gifted it to me on Steam because he demanded that I play with him. And I would not get it. And he was just like, he caved and bought it for me. So I'll take your free game. And so I've been messing around with that multiplayer wise. It's pretty good. I'm having a decent amount of fun with it, actually. Like more than I did with Vanguard and more than I did with Black Ops 4 for sure. I do think it's better. I enjoy it. The UI is the worst UI that I have seen in forever. And this is just, I think I'm at the point where I think I have enough material now to make like a really stupid long video about how bad game UI have gone. But it's really fun. I like it. It's a solid Call of Duty experience. It's been a while since I've been involved in Call of Duty in a real way, and that means like playing with people and actually getting into like, oh, what are the map layouts here, and like what gun should I use? And it is satisfying. It's just, man, suffering through that UI is pretty painful. But I don't have much to say about it. It's more Call of Duty. I'm meshing with it a little bit more than I did with the last Modern Warfare and the last several Call of Duty games as well. So that's probably a better sign than not. And I also started God of War Ragnarok. I'm about, I think, 3.5 to 4 hours in. I didn't get a lot of time to play in the last like day or two, but it's really good. I really like it a lot. Although I am at a point now where I am starting to notice things. And unfortunately, I mean, maybe this is just me, but this is, again, UI is so important. And I don't think it's as bad as God of War 2018 was, certainly. It's definitely a lot more readable. But, and maybe this is just a me thing, because I don't like unnecessary crafting and unnecessary, like, I was never a big fan of God of War 2018's insistence on having these weird armor pieces that you could put on Kratos and make Kratos look not like Kratos at all, for like a weird arbitrary stat boost. And I find the UI kind of noisy and a little obtrusive. I find the menus a little, like, kind of garish, to be honest. But outside of that, the game experience is really cool. The combat is sick. I think it looks really gorgeous. I think the voice, obviously the performances are fantastic. There's this one, there is a point in a fight early on where they do kind of play with the idea that it's a video game, and I think that's really cool. I'm not going to spoil what that is, because I want people to experience that for the first time, because it was a really clever way of playing with the medium of video games that I thought was really cool. I didn't expect God of War to do that. It feels more video gamey this time, or at least that's what I'm noticing in my early hours. It feels a little bit more combat heavy and a little bit more focused on the gaminess of it. But as early as I am into it, I'm really liking it. I think it's really great. I'm having a good time. I can't wait to, I'm thinking about it a lot, which is always a good sign. I can't wait to get back to it. But yeah, other than that, I know Dustin's also been dabbling in it.
Yeah, man, I gotta say, if you have a TV that can support the high frame rate mode with, not VSync, the VRR support,
yeah,
it's very, very impressive what they were able
Absolutely.
to do. And it's so funny, which I know they're very different games in different contexts, but seeing a game like Gotham Knights that can't even run 30, and then you have God of War come out, which can do 1440p upscaled, and I'm pretty sure on Digital Foundry they said it hovers around like 90 FPS. It's pure buttery smooth, and it looks so good. Now, with that, though, I think it's important to say the one thing that stuck out to me about this game. I think that a lot of the art direction of this game does a lot of the heavy lifting, but in a lot of ways, this game, it looks like it was built off the last God of War. It's just running on a way, way more powerful system. And I know with this 30 FPS conversation that's been going on, there's a lot of talk about like, okay, well, is 60 FPS become the standard because we're living in this cross-gen era? And so it's kind of interesting that we have this game that with Ragnarok that runs at 1080p 30 on PS4, and it really at its core is a PS4 game. But playing it, it kind of changed my opinion a little bit, in that I'm okay with a game that is a very competent PS4 game running absolutely amazing on PS5. Like, to me, that's a substantial upgrade. And while, we want native PS5 games, I feel like God of War Ragnarok is the best possible outcome of a cross-gen game. It's clear you're getting a way, way superior experience if you play this on PS5, especially if you have the equipment in order to do that high frame rate mode. It's unbelievable. I feel like I've never seen a game look this nice and this smooth all at once. So I gotta highly recommend, if you've got a HDMI 2.1 capable TV with VRR, the high frame rate mode in performance is amazing. And you don't feel like you're doing any kind of trade-off. Like, if you change it to the other modes, it may look a little sharper, but it's not enough to bother me at all. But overall, I'm enjoying it so far. I echo a lot of what Chris said. It's not radically different, which I didn't expect it to be. There are some new interesting combat mechanics that I actually think are really awesome additions. And I'm really just intrigued on where they're going to take the story. And it's like also what Chris said, I'm just thinking about playing it later tonight. Like that's kind of what's been all day. I'm just thinking like, man, I just am really excited to get back to that game. The other two games that I'll touch on is just Call of Duty. Again, the main thing I just want to say is that the stability of the game has gone up significantly since last week. We're not really having anybody crash anymore. We're still having a few minor matchmaking related issues, but overall, I'm having a ton of fun with this game still. I'm really excited. Warzone 2 is coming, I think, next week, like really, really soon. And so it'll be cool to see how that ties in to Modern Warfare 2. And yeah, overall, I'm just having a blast playing that with the boys almost every night. Last thing, I briefly touched on the Resident Evil Village DLC, I believe it's the Shadow of Rose DLC. Played through that. I believe it's $20, which gets you more Mercenaries content. It gets you the third-person mode for a campaign, and it also gets you this DLC. It took me just over 3 hours to beat it, so it's not super long. And if that's the only thing you want to play of that three-tier selection, it may or may not be worth it to you. Overall, though, I actually thought it was a fun, delightful. It felt like you get a little fun-sized candy bar. It's just like a nice little taste of Resident Evil when maybe we haven't had that in a little bit. Just a nice little taste. Also, was interesting in the way they tied it into the story, the greater story of those two games. And so, if you're looking for a fun little evening with some Resident Evil action, the DLC can't beat it.
Yeah. And before we move on, I also do want to say, just before we get too far away from God of War, it's weird to say this, I understand, but I feel like you would be doing yourself a big favor if you didn't go into this game expecting a sequel. And what I mean by that is God of War Ragnarok feels like the rest of God of War 2018. Like, it feels like the rest of it. It feels like it's picking up from the same place. It feels like very consistent, but it doesn't feel like this overhaul. It's not like...
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, it's not the sequel jump. It just feels like, oh, there's more mechanics that are introduced to you later in this already existing game. And I don't think that's like a bad thing, by the way. I think it actually does a good job for like what it is. I think trying to do the bigger, badder, bolder thing probably would have bitten them in the ass. And I think this is kind of like a smart way to circumvent a lot of that, is to make it feel like a continuation of the last thing rather than a full-on sequel. And it's very, very, very good.
And I think, Chris, too, just the playing on PS5. If you played it last on PS4 at 30 FPS, I think that performance is going to do a lot of the heavy lifting as far as feeling new and awesome. I really can't understate that this game is, on a technical level, just absolutely amazing. It feels like I'm playing on an extremely high-end PC, this game. I'm excited, Colin, for you to play it. I think your TV set up that you can do the 120 FPS mode. I highly, highly recommend it.
Can I come in now? All right, I was like, if people are only listening to the audio, I kept leaning forward to talk, and then they kept backing off. I'm trying to lean back more, by the way, when I do these podcasts, because my back hurts so bad, dude. I know I used to make fun of people for getting backaches. We were at IGN and we had the Airlawn chairs or whatever, and it's like, no, I don't know. I was just a young bucking bronco. I couldn't imagine, I'm like, I'm not a fucking coal miner. Some crazy underwater excavator or something like that. And then lo and behold, like, I just have this horrible pain in my back because I lean into the mic like this because it's comfortable for me to do that. So I'm trying to lean backwards when I'm not talking to kind of balance things out. But I got to figure this out because it's becoming somewhat painful for me to sit in this chair, sit at this desk. I think it's the desk. I need a new desk, which is a shame because this desk is like 8,000 pounds. So it's just like solid wood. And it's in a corner, one of those corner desks. I would say it's probably 500 pounds, something like that. All right. As far as not Resident Evil. As far as God of War Ragnarok, I should say, I will get to it. I don't know with what haste I'm going to be able to get through it. Don't want to hold up the spoilercast and review discussion. We have many people that want to participate in that, so I think we'll be able to go without me potentially even with that, which would be nice. And then maybe I can split off and do Tactics Ogre and do something else to give us a little more variety. But we'll have a spoiler cast and review discussion up for that in the coming weeks on Patreon if you guys want to support us over there. And finally, let's get into the news. There are only 4 items I wrote up this week, but they're pretty big ones, and I think we should go through them one by one. Number 1. According to South Korean website MTN, as relayed by many sources, including typically reliable websites Video Games Chronicle and Push Square, PlayStation may have outsourced the development of a AAA Horizon MMORPG, and it's currently underway at South Korean firm NCSoft. For some 25 years since the launch of the original Lineage in the fall of 1998, NCSoft has been a well-known and respected MMO developer that has also collaborated with huge names in publishing deals, most notably with ArenaNet and their 2 Guild Wars games from 2005 and 2012. These days, they're running games primarily on PC, but also on mobile, across the MMORPG spectrum, including games like Blade and Soul and its sequels, and the newest Lineage game, Lineage W, which has never left Asia. Now to the rumor from MTN. According to an automatically translated version of the story, MTN claims Sony and NCSoft have entered into an agreement to create a Horizon MMORPG, and it's currently being made internally. The article explains that at NCSoft, games are incubated in so-called seeds, where small teams spin off to create proofs of concept and then pitch them. They are then promoted to so-called camps, where games enter production. Horizon is apparently at this stage. Now, while this is a foreign language report about a company we don't know a whole lot about on this show, website Push Square has added some useful context that seems to corroborate this reporting, particularly in the form of hiring being done at Horizon's home studio, Guerrilla. Owned by Sony, Guerrilla operates out of the Netherlands, and they are openly hiring for a Korean translator to work from their office as we speak. The site also points out that, for the first time ever, Guerrilla is openly hiring for mobile-specific positions. And then there's this quote from Herman Holst, who told Famitsu in a recent interview, quote, "We believe that developing titles that are suitable for mobile and realizing crossplay between console and mobile is also an important initiative," end quote. If rumors are therefore to be believed, expect a Horizon MMORPG from NCSoft to launch on PlayStation 5, PC, and mobile, perhaps by mid-decade. Guerrilla, the creators of 2017's Horizon Zero Dawn and its 2022 sequel Horizon Forbidden West, is widely considered one of Sony's most important teams. The original Horizon sold 20 million copies, and its sequel is one of the best-selling games of the year so far. The team was once known for its Killzone shooter franchise as well, although that IP has seemingly been abandoned. Other upcoming Horizon experiences include a rumored Horizon Zero Dawn remake for PS5, a Netflix series, and a multiplayer Horizon game that frankly may be one and the same as what we're talking about here. Finally, a PSVR 2 launch game, Horizon Call of the Mountain, is also in development, this time at sister studio Firesprite. In other words, Sony really, really believes in Horizon. And this gets into our inquiry here from Stray Bullets, who wrote into us on Patreon, just like you can. Look for the thread each week in the newsfeed. He says, "Greetings, the Father, the Son, and the other Son. News is circulating that Sony may now be pursuing a Horizon MMO in cooperation with NCSoft. This, in addition to Call of the Mountain and the planned Netflix series, seems to signify a heavy investment in the IP. How strong does the Sacred Symbols crew believe Horizon as a brand really is? Zero Dawn sales across PS4 and PC were solid, and Forbidden West so far seems respectable enough. Although the PS5 bundle and it releasing during a bit of a software drought should be taken into account. Beyond the broad concept laid out in the first game, I find the characters stiff, the attempts at emotion and levity fall flat, and the ongoing story a drag. I'd love to shoot robot dinosaurs in a beautiful world without the overly serious cheese of the plot and characters distracting from that. After thoroughly playing both games, I really don't want more from the IP, but it seems inevitable. What say you?" Once again, thank you for taking the time to read one of my verbose questions. I appreciate you three very much. Take care. Thank you, Stray Bullets, for writing in. Dustin, let's go to you first.
Yeah, they want a piece of...
I'm sorry, okay. What were you going to say? Go on.
I was going to say, they want a piece of that Genshin Impact money.
That's exactly right.
Sounds like.
That's exactly right. And no one knows more about Genshin Impact money than Sony themselves. I mean, because they have monopolized Genshin Impact on console, basically, at least did to a degree. So there's no doubt that that's true. But I'm wondering where you stand on this. I don't know too much about NCSoft. An old roommate of mine, Christine Steimer, was obsessed with Guild Wars and Guild Wars 2. That's about the most I've been exposed to NCSoft, and they're a publisher of that game. I don't know anything about Lineage or whatever. I'm not going to pretend to know anything about these games. I just really don't. I am much more concerned about Horizon being just completely run into the ground. I do want to say Stray Bullets is a little bit incorrect in his categorization. You said Zero Dawn sales from PS4 and PC were solid. Horizon Zero Dawn is, I think, the second best-selling or third best-selling PlayStation exclusive ever. So that's not small. That's a lot. And they obviously looked at that and said, well, we need to do something else. What I would have said was, okay, let's do a sequel, and which is going to be a trilogy. I mean, if you play the second one, you know that. That's not a spoiler. It's going to be 3 games. And maybe do a VR spinoff or something like that. But TV show, this online game, which may be one and the same in this, the Zero Dawn remake for PS5.
Oh my God, I forgot about that.
It's too much. I'm just wondering, Dustin, where you stand.
Yeah, I think that we are definitely in the territory of potentially getting too much. At the same time, I think if we ignore the other things and just try to evaluate this potential thing on its own, I feel like this probably has a lot of potential. As I said, they want to make that Genshin Impact money. It's clear at the point now that while us boomers don't want to play these types of games on our phones with touch controls and stuff, a lot of that doesn't seem to deter a lot of people to wanting to play games like this, and especially that ability to play on console and then when you're on the go being able to play it on your phone or something like that. And yeah, Sony is very familiar with how much a game like Genshin Impact how well it's done and how much money they make on that. So I can totally see them thinking like, okay, well, we have an IP that has done very well for us. We've got other projects in the works, and this is something that they can use different aspects to monetize or to, monetize the product, whether it's different skins or different characters or weapons or whatever. It seems like an absolute home run. And that's the thing, is that if Sony wants to succeed with some of these live service games, it's gonna be imperative, I think, that they attach it to their current IP. And I'm not saying it's impossible to have a successful live service game built on a new IP. There's tons of them. Fortnite and
Genshin Impact.
Genshin Impact. I mean, they're both. I think that though they're looking at it as a safer investment and something that can be used to bolster the other products in the lineup of that IP. With that all being said, I think that there is definitely potential, especially if some of these products that start coming out, if they're not very good, then that really, you don't want to sour the well. And I think every time you introduce a new major project, you run that risk for sure.
Yeah, as far as I can see, because I agree with you, they're mitigating risk. And I always say this to people. Part of development, especially in pre-production, is getting everything together, making the ethos, the world, the characters. Once you have that, you kind of give people their Bible and you go from there. And it cuts a lot of time out. The question, Chris, is Horizon good enough to necessitate this? What's obvious is that Sony looks at some of these games. They looked at Spider-Man. They're like, we got to do another Spider-Man. We got to do Miles Morales. We're going to do all these interstitials. Best-selling exclusive, right? God of War. Going to do another God of War. One of the best-selling exclusives. Horizon's number 3 in that list.
Yeah.
So there's no doubt that Zero Dawn sold well. It's also no doubt that as far as I understand, because we've had some contention on this, the bundles do not count apparently towards sales on the MPD. So right. Horizon Forbidden West is one of the best-selling games in the United States this year, a la carte.
Yeah.
So I have it here though written, Chris, just to put it in for you. So we have Horizon 1 and 2. There's going to be a third one. We won't even count that. VR, remake, MMO, which we'll assume is the same as the online game, and Netflix is 5 upcoming Netflix products, although they've only acknowledged 2 of them so far in the VR project and Netflix.
Oh, wait, you said 5 upcoming Netflix products.
I'm sorry, 5 upcoming Horizon products. 3 VR, remake, Netflix, MMO. It's a lot. What do you think?
It is a lot. It's I definitely think it's too much too quickly. But at the same time, you know what I think what's confusing about it is, or you know what, maybe it isn't, because I was thinking like, oh, it's the 3rd most popular IP. Surely they would want to do this with their their most popular IP, but then their most popular IP is not theirs. It's Spider-Man. And then God of War doesn't really lend itself well to a lot of other experiences that are not, like, maybe they could have done a God of War VR game, maybe, but like that you couldn't do a God of War multiplayer game.
I don't think you could even do it. I don't know, dude.
That.
I don't think you can even do a God of War movie or TV show. Like I just
No,
I just think it's too weird. He's
Yeah.
too big. It
you
could be a
could do
cartoon, an animated thing.
Yeah, you could do an anime or like an animated series or something like that. Maybe. But I think Horizon is in an interesting spot because it is really, really big, but it's not as revered. It's not like, I feel like God of War runs the risk of, like, if there's a Horizon TV show and it's bad, I don't think that would deter people from Horizon in the same way that if Sony allowed something like God of War to falter in that way, I feel like that would be a bigger conversation. It's the same thing that's happening with Halo right now. How, like, if Halo if that game, specifically Infinite, had launched in the exact same state with the exact same amount of content, with the exact same, everything about it the same, but it wasn't a Halo game, people would have been a lot more forgiving of it. But the fact that it is tied to like this legacy of the platform holder makes it all the more disrespectful that something like that happened. And even with the television shows, a very similar thing. So I would imagine that Horizon exists in this very interesting space where it's new, and so it doesn't have that kind of legacy importance, so that they feel a little bit more free to kind of experiment with it in a way that maybe they don't feel as comfortable with everything else. And everything else that they've made recently doesn't really have the chops. It doesn't have, Days Gone is not going to make a fantastic animated series or a VR game or a multiplayer game. Like, I mean, maybe
anything.
Game, but like,
no, I like that.
Or maybe anything. But I don't know. I think maybe that's the reason why they're running with Horizon, is because it's very, very profitable. It's very, very big, and it's relatively low risk in comparison. But it confuses me because I maybe it's just designed in a way that is completely antithetical to me. But like I do not get it. I don't understand Horizon, and I don't know why. Because I've tried, but like there's something, even Forbidden West, there's like something about it. It's like, why are you telling me every 10 seconds what I can do? Oh, I can jump up that rock wall and get to here. It's like, yes, I know that.
It's just extensive playtesting, unfortunately.
Yeah, I know, but it really, I don't know.
That is why, because probably like 25% of players didn't know what to do, so they were like, we need to get what's her name in the fucking booth so she can tell you to climb a rope.
It's so crazy to me that they just overwrought the dialogue in that way. But, clearly they see something. I think it's got a striking style that also lends itself well to, like, you could really translate Horizon really well into lower poly kind of things if you needed it to be. If you want to do like a hyper stylized Genshin Impact type game with like not as many resources clouding up texture work and have it like a little bit more simple looking, I think Horizon lends itself well to that, because the machines, all the machines, just all they need to be is really cool, like, looking, and you don't even really need a lot of texture work. And whereas I can imagine chibi God of War wouldn't be too exciting or anything like that. So yeah, I just think it's a flexible IP, and that's why they're running with it. But
I mean,
we'll see how it goes.
I just did some loose math. Assuming the average copy of Horizon sold at $40, so the game came out at $60, let's say $40, just on average. You got it for sale, some of you got it for 10, some of you got it for 20, 30, some of you, obviously, some of us paid for 60 or whatever. You're looking at 20 million copies. That's $800 million in gross revenue. And since it's a first-party game, that's just all of their money. The budget for the game is no more than a quarter of that, I would say. So when you look at their gross revenue, not gross revenue, net revenue rather, so profit from the last quarter, it was a fraction of this. And so you just look, you can see the math and you see what they're doing. I mean, it's obvious what they're doing. It's just, I don't know that it's a great idea. I personally think Horizon is great. I think Horizon is underrated, if anything. I mean, I've been a proponent of that for a long time. I think Horizon, especially Forbidden West, I think is really underrated. It makes me wonder what people expected or wanted. I thought it was wonderful. I thought it was a really, really great game. And so I'm not a hater of Horizon. I just think that I don't know how many times I have to say this, but it's just too much of a good thing. You got to expose your IP only so much. You can't just wring it out like this and expect it not to have a consequence. And what's funny to me is that I feel like Horizon doesn't lend itself to it being an MMO as much as it lends itself to actually being like a hunting style game. We've been talking about Wild Hearts and Monster Hunter recently and all of that. I feel like Horizon is much more akin to that. You would think you would want to do a spinoff that might want to take advantage of that instead. And maybe that's what Horizon will be, just in a more multiplayer centric suite. But I don't know. I feel like a Netflix series, an MMO, the remake, the VR game, the third game, obviously, are by the time the third
show.
Morning talk, right? By the time the third game comes out, so 2017, 2022, let's say 2027, are we going to be like over this by this point? 2026, it just be like, I don't care anymore about this. It's not exciting. It would be like when Mass Effect was coming out, but they released Mass Effect 1 and then Mass Effect 2, but then 7 games before Mass Effect 3. And it's like, well, what about Mass Effect 3? What about the actual game you've caught us with? Don't try to take advantage of us like this.
Kingdom Hearts fans know this pain.
I was about to say, you just described Kingdom Hearts. Basically. It's like, Dream Drop Distance on the fucking, I don't know, 3DS, or what about that? Wasn't there a game on Facebook or something? Wasn't there like an internet-only Kingdom Hearts game?
There was an iOS-only game that was 100% essential for the story.
Jesus Christ.
All right, one more inquiry here about this. Elon Chan wrote into us and said, "Hi CDC, what are your thoughts on the report from Video Games Chronicle that Sony is reportedly working with NCSoft on a Horizon MMO? Personally, when I see NCSoft, I cringe internally, especially when it's paired with a flagship franchise like Horizon. Yes, they've had some success with Lineage and Guild Wars, but I'm reminded of games that left a bad taste in my mouth, like WildStar, City of Heroes, Tabula Rasa, and Auto Assault. I remember Auto Assault. Boys, what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts, both positive and negative? Dustin, I was curious, do you have any familiarity with NCSoft as a quality or not quality maker? I really don't have any insight into them as a company. So share with me some of your insight.
I don't know if I could speak to the quality because it was so long ago, but when I was a kid, the Guild Wars and Guild Wars 2 were very appealing because they were MMOs that did not require monthly subscriptions. You bought them one time, and then you could play as much as you want. And I think there was paid expansions and stuff like that, but there wasn't this thing of having to ask my parents to subscribe to $10 or $15 a month in order to play a game, because that just wasn't going to happen for me. So this was kind of the only option. And while I never got too into them, I remember having a lot of fun with them, and I know that they have a very hardcore fan base behind them. And so this seems to be a good fit. And what I was thinking is that it may be the best fit overall when it comes to an MMO studio, because the two top players being Blizzard, that's not going to happen, and Square Enix, which why would they don't need someone else's IP to make a successful MMO. So who else do you go to that has that kind of experience? And so it really seems like these guys would be the next in line. So it makes a lot of sense to me. And I don't know, as much as I agree that I think that this could be oversaturation point, this is intriguing to me, just because I do like MMOs. It's been a long time since I've played one and gotten really into it, but there's still some part of me that would want to check this out.
I guess I'm confused in the sense I'm just looking at their Metacritic page, and I don't think Metacritic's a perfect analysis tool or anything close to it, but he's talking about how he cringes about these things. But it's Guild Wars 2, 90, Guild Wars 89, City of Heroes 85, City of Villains 82, WildStar 82, Fuser 81, Alon 76, and then you get down to some of these Lineage games that didn't do well. He brought up Auto Assault, that's 72, Dungeon Runner 74. I mean, it's not. Doesn't seem that bad to me, not at all. Especially knowing how hard.
Did you say Fuser?
Yeah, Fuser. They published that. That was a Harmonix game.
They published it. I was going to say, because I was like, that's a Harmonix joint. That's so weird that they were attached to that game.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So, yeah, we'll see how it all goes down. But I just feel like too much Horizon, too much of anything. It's just so cynical, ultimately, from a corporation. Yeah, you like Horizon? Oh, okay. Well, here's a million Horizon games. I don't know how that's going to turn out for you. You might be wishing you didn't do this, but we'll see. I'll try to be open-minded about it, and we'll wait until we learn more. Number 2. This is an interesting one. Not been widely reported. I'm really curious what you guys think of this, because I think it doesn't bode very well. Number 2, The following wouldn't even be a worthy news item on this show, but considering the subject matter, we have to talk about it. According to seldom cited website Games Radar, Naughty Dog, arguably PlayStation's most important first-party team, has hired systems designer Anders Howard, who most recently worked at Ubisoft, but is actually known for his time as Epic. So why is this relevant? Well, here's what his LinkedIn CV says in part about his time at Epic, which lasted from 2014 until earlier this year. Quote, I joined Epic during the early days of Fortnite as a systems designer. I designed many of the core systems of Fortnite Save the World from the ground up with a focus on combat model, economy, the skill tree, content scaling, and progression. I would go on to ship 8 seasons of live content for Save the World. Later, I moved over to Fortnite Battle Royale, where I helped form the core of Battle Pass progression strategy, delivering overwhelming value for that product to as many players as possible, end quote. He later goes on to add that, quote, as the resident expert, I consulted on Battle Pass integrations across Rocket League and Fall Guys, end quote. Meanwhile, for his short stint at Ubisoft, which lasted only 10 months spanning this calendar year, he writes in part, quote, reporting to the game director, I am the vision holder for social and economic systems, end quote. So what's his new role called at Naughty Dog? Well, at Epic, he was a senior systems designer, and at Ubisoft, he was a lead systems designer. Within Sony's walls, he'll now be a principal monetization designer. And now we get to the crux of the issue. What does this have to do with Naughty Dog? The obvious answer is the long-awaited standalone Factions game the team is making for PS5 and likely PC as well. So now we're left to wonder what this tells us, and I think what it says is obvious. Factions could very well be a free-to-play game with an economic system designed by none other than the dude who designed monetization in the most popular free-to-play game ever made. This rather ominous news came on the back of more exciting news for Naughty Dog. However, at least in the form of a Kickstarted The Last of Us board game, sanctioned by Sony and its crown jewel developer. The board game, called Escape the Dark, has already surpassed its asking goal of $140,000 by more than 3 times over, and by the time this podcast airs on Patreon, you'll have 3 weeks left to support it. So good news there. But this news of this guy, Anders Howard, getting hired, and I did a pretty extensive reading about him when I saw this. Chris, we'll go to you first. I read about this guy, and it was only making the rounds in more hardcore sites, like hardcore PlayStation sites. But I was like, no, this is a pretty big deal. The reason I think it's a big deal is because for Ubisoft to court him from Epic must have cost him an arm and a leg, and then something either went wrong at Ubisoft or he was courted away immediately to come to Naughty Dog. So this guy is obviously valuable. What do you think this says about Naughty Dog's future intent? They're hiring the guy who created the Battle Pass for Fortnite.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't really change anything about how I saw this game to begin with. Like, I was always under the presupposition that Factions was going to be a free-to-play game that was going to be not exclusive, and then that was likely going to be heavily monetized. It seemed like I mean, it all lines up with what Sony's intentions were about, oh, wait, we're going to ship this many live service games by this year. And it's like, well, you only have so many studios, you only have so many IP. When we knew about a multiplayer version of Factions, it would only make sense that would be a free-to-play game. Maybe this is a... Man, I don't know. It's disappointing, but it's also very much what I expected. Like, we are going to have a free-to-play Last of Us game with monetization and likely $20 skins and all sorts of weird shit, because if you can figure out, if you put out a game and it makes $3 billion every couple months, or even less than that, even less time than that and more money than that, like, why would you not try to seek that out? Like, it makes perfect sense. So the fact that they were able to get this guy is pretty impressive to me. That's like the most interesting thing, is that, because surely Sony isn't the only person, or Sony isn't the only conglomerate looking to do this. You know, like, there's got to be a lot of people, especially in the games industry, a lot of companies that are trying their hand at getting into this space, as there have been for the last several years. So the idea that Sony was really, really adamant and really, really competitive about this person in particular speaks to his value. But I don't know if there's much more to say other than I knew this. I've been telling you on the show for a while now that this is what we're going to get.
Yeah, just to be clear about your revenue numbers too, Fortnite makes about $5 billion a year. So
yeah. Crazy.
That's insane. 2021, $5.8 billion made, gross, not net. But I'm sure that's
it's gross.
Almost all net. Yeah, it's gross. It's gross in its own special way. Dustin, do you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, I feel like I have a really different perspective on this, in that we've seen good and bad and everything in between when it comes to monetizing free-to-play games. Specifically, when you think of bad examples, the early days of Overwatch with loot boxes. Thankfully, we've moved away from that. Fallout 76 charging ridiculously stupid prices on mundane items that people don't want. And through all this, I feel like if they're going to monetize the game and having the guy that designed the Fortnite Battle Pass, this is the best possible person to do it, in that people happily pay for a Battle Pass and get a ton of value out of it. For example, the Battle Pass costs 950 V-Bucks, which is approximately like $9.50. It's about $10. And so through it, you can unlock tons of, it's like the best bang for your buck if you want to get in-game items, whether it's new skins or emotes or whatever. The value is 100% there. You just have to unlock it and play the game in order to get it. So that's cool. But in addition to that, when you play the Battle Pass, you unlock more V-Bucks through it. In fact, if this website is accurate, this sounds right because I remember this from when I played Fortnite. So $9.50 is the price, and you can unlock 1,500 V-Bucks as you play. So if you buy a Battle Pass and play through all of it, you will get enough V-Bucks to buy the next Battle Pass if you want, and the one after that. Now, obviously, it's a way to encourage people to earn V-Bucks and then spend it in the shop, and maybe you don't have quite enough, and so you spend another $5 or $10 or whatever. But
yeah,
and obviously, I'm not trying to defend $20 skins. I mean, to each their own. If you want to spend $20 on a Dragon Ball Z character in a game, I honestly was almost tempted to do it. If it was One Piece, I may have felt different. But I think when it comes to this is a good situation. People love battle passes, especially ones that are done right, not like Halo's battle pass, which really sucked. So if we're going to do this, let's do it in a way that people feel like they're getting what they're paying for. And this guy clearly knows the way to do it, as he created many successful monetization aspects in a lot of very successful games. So to me, this is something to celebrate.
Yeah. I mean, I guess the way I feel about it is like, you know how the best place to get shot is like the hand or the foot?
Right. Yeah.
It's kind of like that, where it's like, I guess I'll take a bullet to the hand if it means avoiding it to the head, but I'd still prefer not to get shot. And it's just kind of how it feels, where it's like, this is the world we're in now. It's like, this is free to play. This is modern multiplayer. And I guess this is the best case scenario, but at the same time, it's that in and of itself is bad news, you know? But that's also just like a pessimistic view, I guess.
It's conceivable that, although incredibly unlikely, that he was hired to do something else, but it's just his actual title. That's why I brought up the titles and was looking through his CV to see what his actual titles were. The title is most explicit actually here with Naughty Dog. So it's obvious what's happening here. I think we just have to put two and two together and assume that it has to do with factions. It could have to do with some other game entirely. I hope not. I mean, I think what we should be hoping for right now is that it has to do with factions, because that only indicates that there's more of this shit coming, which we really hope is not the case. Naughty Dog doing a free-to-play game is pretty bold, if that's what they're actually going to do. Pretty bold. I still feel like it's going to be a game you buy, though, and then it's going to be supported with Battle Pass, Game Pass, or Expansion Pass type things. I just don't feel like...
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know. It seems
that
very
makes sense,
risky.
Colin.
What?
That makes sense. Like, Call of Duty is a full retail game, $70, and the Battle Pass is going to come out next week for it, and people buy that on top of it. So it's certainly possible there can be an additional Battle Pass for factions.
Look at that segue. Number 3. There's a bit of Call of Duty related news to get through. While Microsoft's attempted acquisition of publisher Activision Blizzard gets further entangled in the European Union's bureaucratic web, the newest Call of Duty game, Modern Warfare 2, launched in late October, surpassed a stunning $1 billion in sales after only 10 days, according to a corporate press release. The previous record holder for $1 billion in sales was held by Black Ops 2, which came to PlayStation 3 in 2012, and it took 15 days. As such, Activision and its fleet of COD-centric developers are readying the game's first content drop, a first season, as it were, which will launch on November 16th. This is a notable date, as this is the same day that free-to-play follow-up to the Call of Duty Warzone, Warzone 2, will also launch. And all of this has been revealed on the back of perhaps the most interesting Call of Duty related news we've heard in a while. That while Call of Duty will get a full price release in 2023, it may not be a standalone game itself, which comports with what I've heard from sources in the past and which we've reported on this very podcast. However, some sources pick this up as Call of Duty getting a standalone game in 2023, which was shot down by reliable industry insider Bloomberg's Jason Schreier. Activision's financial reports note in part that 2023's plans include, quote, the most robust Call of Duty live operations to date, the next full premium release in the blockbuster annual series, and even more engaging free-to-play experiences across platforms, end quote. In a tweet, Schreier notes that the next full Call of Duty game will come from Treyarch in 2024. Originally intended for 2023, it was delayed earlier this year. Sledgehammer, another Call of Duty team, will instead be releasing an expansion for Modern Warfare 2, so it seems Activision is trying to spin their future product into something it may not be. Call of Duty, console and PC gaming's most important franchise ever, has seen 19 core releases dating back to the original Call of Duty, which came to PC in 2003. What makes it hard for some to believe when it comes to news about 2023 not getting a new Call of Duty is that it would be the first year since 2004 that one hasn't been launched. There was a year between 2003's original and the 2005 sequel, and ever since then, the franchise has been annualized without missing a single year. Infinity Ward, the studio responsible for the franchise to begin with, is behind this year's mega popular game and was once widely considered to be the superior COD developer, behind games like the original Modern Warfare, 2007's Call of Duty 4, the 2009 sequel by the same name as this year's game, and so on, leading right up to 2019's Modern Warfare reimagining. Treyarch, meanwhile, was once considered the secondary team, beginning with 2008's World at War, though Black Ops, which started on PS3 in 2010, brought them back into good graces. Other teams working on Call of Duty include Raven and the aforementioned Sledgehammer, which led 2 Call of Duty games on its own in 3 of them, 2014, 2017, and 2021. So, Dustin, let's go back to you. Call of Duty, since you've been playing it most intensely. Any of this news strike you as interesting?
Yeah, I'm very curious how this is going to shake out, just because if their intent is to release more Modern Warfare 2, how do you do that? Obviously, it sounds like we're going to get more campaign stuff, but by and large, people play it, but it's not the selling point. So that's cool and all, but it really comes down to what are they going to offer for the multiplayer aspect. And I think there's a big potential issue there in that it was just a few years ago that Call of Duty changed from releasing DLC map packs and started releasing them for free in order to keep the community together. That was a very important and a very positive change. And so I'm not really sure what they're going to offer for people without splitting the community, because I feel like that would be a major mistake. Now, I saw some tweets about the possibility of them going and remastering the old maps, which the original Modern Warfare 2 maps, which I think would be really cool, and a lot of people would be really excited about that. But
I would be excited for that.
Yeah, I think that would be totally awesome. But again, I would just have that concern about when you get a group of friends together, having that concern about splitting people up. We've gotten really comfortable with this idea of everyone has everything now in these big multiplayer games. And so doing that is a bit concerning. The only other thing that I'll just say that from the top of the story, Colin, is about the $1 billion in sales. This is why they are releasing Modern Warfare 2. That name, that Modern Warfare name, I mean, it sounds stupid to us. And when you think about it, it's like, yeah, it's stupid. They're using the same name again. But it's really not stupid. It's $1 billion. And a lot of that comes down to just that name.
The money doesn't
Modern
lie.
Warfare name is arguably bigger than Call of Duty. Or at least as big, just Modern Warfare. That attachment, man. It's not surprising to me that it's their biggest launch ever.
Yeah, I feel like in some sense, I mean, who has more data than Activision? Who knows more about what their players are looking for, and who's talking to them more and studying them more? I mean, I think they know exactly what they're doing. I just think the results speak for themselves. To make that much money on a game, I mean, $1 billion in 10 days, I'm going to say the game's combined marketing and development budget is $500 million maybe. So they've made twice as much. They made it all back. And now it's all profit. It's just totally wild. And we can make fun of it. I've never been one to make fun of Call of Duty. I've always been very consistent in that because I just feel like it speaks for itself. I know people say, well, Britney Spears' record sold, many times platinum and all that. I'm like, well, the market doesn't lie. Britney Spears didn't do that for 20 years. Every year. She did it once or twice or 3 times or whatever, sporadic, strung around. If you want to talk about quality versus what the market wants and all of that and equating those two things, I just think, and Chris, will go to you, when you sell a $50 and then $60 and then $70 game every year, and it's the best selling or one of the best selling games in the world every year, that does speak to its quality, whether you want to believe it or not. It's true. It has to be. Things simply don't last based on flukes like this. I would love to hear your contrary argument to it, but if Call of Duty was bad, it would have never happened.
I don't think Call of Duty is bad, but I don't think I think quality is less. I think it's less to do about quality and more to do about a consistent and reliable product. Like, I think the reason why Call of Duty is so powerful is because it has launched relatively stable every single time. It comes out every single year. And I think that's really what it comes down to. It's more about, because we talked earlier about, letting things die, and like how like Mass Effect did this thing. It's like, oh, hey, we came back with Andromeda and then they went away for a while and now we're coming back with this thing. And it's like, when in reality, if they could have managed, if this was even remotely possible, if they could have made a single player story Mass Effect adventure every year and it was always like reliable, that would be a fucking massive deal. That would be probably one of the biggest games in the world, simply because people can rely on it. We're creatures of habit. We make these plans around each other. And like specifically with a multiplayer game like that, if a game is coming out in November and that it's going to be the talk of the town, then you're likely going to jump onto it. And if your friends are playing it, you're definitely likely to jump. Like when Call of Duty 4 came out, I had no interest in Call of Duty 4. I played Call of Duty 4 because my friends were playing Call of Duty 4. And my friends were playing Call of Duty 4 because Call of Duty 4 was genuinely really good. It was a new kind of thing. It wasn't Call of Duty 3. It wasn't Call of Duty 1 and 2 or Big Red 1 or any of those other ones. It was Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare. It was a new thing. And because it was a new thing, that was exciting. There was like a progression system. There was like these loadout system that was like really cool. It was new. And I think there is quality there. I think the reality, though, is that Call of Duty is as big as it is because they didn't really move the needle that much. They stayed with what worked from, more or less. They strayed a little bit, but it never got so far away that you weren't sure that you were playing Call of Duty. And a lot of other series don't do that. Usually they stray too far, or they just don't do enough. I think they do just enough every time to keep people coming back to see like what little things are going to be new. And it's worked out for them because they've consistently been able to hit that mark. Also, they have many studios working on games on an alternating schedule. That also helps. But, it's junk food, no one's going to say that Doritos are as good as like a fucking perfect chicken parm. But you can go to the store and pick up Doritos for like $2-3 like everywhere you go. They're everywhere, and they're a safe bet because everybody's okay with them at worst. And I think that's kind of what Call of Duty is. I'm having a good time with Modern Warfare 2. Like, it's fun, but is it even close to the best first person shooter experiences I've ever had? No. Not really. Not from like a gameplay perspective, not even from a polish perspective, definitely not from a UI perspective. But I can play it with people, and I know people are going to be playing it, and I know people are going to be playing the next one. So I think consistency is key in everything. Everything. If you're making content, if you're making music, if you're doing anything, if you're there when the people are looking, you're going to do fine. And that's ultimately what their strategy is.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I don't know enough about the newer Call of Duty games, maybe like the second half of Call of Duty's lineup as well as I know the first half of it. But it doesn't make any sense, in my opinion. I'm not saying you're saying this, but just this idea that it just goes on fumes. It can't. For it to have this level of inertia, it has to have started good and been good. or it wouldn't have this inertia. Just there's nothing else like it. Look what happened to Assassin's Creed before they started making into this bloated, huge open world. It started to kind of fall, you know, with Syndicate and all these other games where people weren't really as into it anymore until they redesigned and embraced it. I don't know.
Right. But Assassin's Creed also isn't a multiplayer game. I think the multiplayer aspect of it helps a lot. And I'm not saying that like it's gotten terrible. What I'm saying is, man, how do I put this? It's think about the MCU, right? Think about like Marvel movies.
If I have to.
Those are incredibly successful, like wildly successful, and people go to them all the time. And they make a ton of money every year. And even on a down year, it's still astounding how much money those movies make. I think like Black Panther made like over $1 billion, and the new Spider-Man made over $1 billion. Those movies are not nearly as good as the best movies of all time. You know what I mean? Like, they're not even close.
Yeah, you're right.
But what they are is consistent. And it's like, oh, wow, there's another movie. Okay, yeah, I'll go see it because everybody's going to be fine with it. It's like just the right amount of inoffensive to just kind of get the most people on board with something and allow them to have as much fun as possible with it. And I think that's what it is. Like, in your opinion, Colin, is any Call of Duty game the best first-person shooter that you've ever played?
No, definitely not. No.
Right.
Yeah, no, you're right. That's a compelling argument of consistency, the purpose of consistency, and how insistent they are. It seems like in some way to stick with that timeline, even though the games simply for the first time will not be ready. I wonder if they could make that game ready. They spent enough time. I don't think you can spend enough, not time, rather money. I don't think you can spend enough money actually to make games that are not done. You do need like some sort of cohesive effort at some point. So we'll see what happens, but I'm happy for their success. I'm very interested to see what happens with Activision Blizzard and Microsoft in the coming months, and kind of the snare they're stuck in right now in Europe, and Sony continuing to put out these Call of Duty commercials that make it seem like it's only on PlayStation, which is of course not a new thing, but you could just see all these marketing things and already in flux, and why they're freaking out so much. So we'll continue to keep an eye on that, especially on the Sacred Sail saga, where Modern Warfare will be a constant mainstay, I'm sure. All right. Number 4, the final news item for the, I was going to say the year, I wish, for the week. If you're a subscriber to PlayStation Plus's top 2 tiers, Extra and Premium, you have a bunch of new games to look forward to beginning November 15th, around the time this podcast goes live on free feeds. Let's start with PlayStation 5 games across both tiers. The most surprising of the bunch is no doubt 2021's The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim Special Edition. This is surprising, of course, because Bethesda is now owned by Sony rival Microsoft, making striking these kinds of deals between the two parties far from guaranteed. Also available is Ubisoft's forever popular online shooter, 2015's Rainbow Six Siege. It, of course, got its PS5 iteration near the console's launch. Also available on PS5 is 2021's Oddworld game Soulstorm from developer Oddworld Inhabitants, Fish Lab's 2021 space shooter Chorus, and recent PS5 release adventure game The Gardens Between from studio The Voxel Agents. All of these games are also natively available on PS4. As for PlayStation 4 only games, how about a ton of Kingdom Hearts content from Square Enix? Kingdom Hearts 1.5 and 2.5 Remix, Kingdom Hearts HD 2.8 Final Chapter Prologue, Kingdom Hearts 3 and Kingdom Hearts Melody of Memory are all available on the service. A couple of Ubisoft games, 2019's The Division 2 and Ghost Recon Breakpoint, will also join the service, as will one-time could-be PlayStation exclusive that wasn't, 2017's What Remains of Edith Finch from developer Giant Sparrow. A couple of Earth Defense Force games, 2019's Iron Rain and 2020's World Brothers, both spin-offs, also come to the service, as does a 2019 Ani Chambara game, Origin. And now for the more dramatic section of our list, the premium-only titles. These are games only available to the highest-paying PS Plus subscribers, and while this list seems great to me, many are upset. This month, to celebrate Ratchet & Clank's 20th anniversary, the following 5 Ratchet & Clank games are joining the premium roster, all running on PS3. 2002's Ratchet & Clank, 2003's Going Commando, 2004's Up Your Arsenal, 2005's Deadlocked, and 2007's Tools of Destruction. Dustin, I want to go to you immediately, because I said on Discord, and of course, joining us on Patreon, you can get into our Discord, where more than 5,000 of you hang out with us and talk about all sorts of things, games and not. But I had brought up there that this seemed like an exceptionally good list, and that I didn't quite understand why people were so upset. I understand people want retro games. These are retro games. These are some of the best PlayStation 2 exclusive games that exist. I just feel like people are so caught up in this ball of ready to be mad about everything with PlayStation Plus that they're not really seeing it for what it is. I was like, this seems actually better than what I would have expected, if anything like that. If anything, do you agree?
No. Colin, have you streamed a PS3 game on your PS5?
Oh my God, no. No.
I don't want to say your opinion is invalid, but I think if you had, you would feel differently right now. Because for most people, a streamed PS3 game might as well be nothing. You might as well be getting nothing because they don't want it, because the quality fucking sucks. You might,
really
it might seriously, like, this is appealing to so few people, and I know I know there's people that are like, oh, it's not that bad. God bless you for
they live in Manhattan
the quality.
Or something when they say that. I think,
I don't know.
Yeah.
I think in the best possible scenario of internet, it's still not very good. So I think that's like the biggest thing is that it's like mostly what we're getting from this service is more the easiest possible thing for Sony, which is slapping a game on a PS3 game on the streaming service and calling it a day. That's the thing. And you brought it up in the thing. This is the premium tier, the people spending the most money, and they're putting the least amount of effort into this tier at this point. And it's so obvious. Where are the PS1 games with trophies? Where are even the PSP games with trophies? They have so many games to choose from, even from just...
Has there been a PSP game with trophies yet? I don't think so. Right?
I don't know.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
Yeah, maybe. So not even that, dude.
I mean, I don't follow that stuff as closely, but like I can tell you that like I haven't seen any in my time. I know that for a fact.
Yeah, I don't think it's happened yet. It's theoretically possible, we know, but that's about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I just not to cut you off, but I totally echo that. Like I tried running because I was like, it can't be that bad. Like maybe because I tried streaming I think oh my God, in Infamous. I remember, like years ago, and it was horrible. But I was like, oh, it's been years. Maybe it's better. And I tried Resistance 3. Arbitrarily the only Resistance game that you can stream. For no,
that might be the best first-person shooter ever, by the way. You asked about the best first-person shooter. That might be my choice.
Ooh, that's interesting.
Like a pure shooter, not first-person perspective, but that's a shooter,
Yeah, well, you know what? It's the worst way to play that game for sure, because it was the muddiest thing I've ever seen because the textures were loading in inconsistently, and like it's just a bad a friend of mine was playing God of War 2 and it like on like the old God of War 2 on PS Now, and it looked okay. I wasn't playing it, but I don't know, man. It's really inconsistent, and that's kind of the problem with PS Now is that like sometimes it'll be fine for a little bit and sometimes it'll be like the worst forever, but it's never, I've dabbled in streaming a lot. Like I've streamed stuff from my PC to my iPad. I've streamed, I use the Game Pass streaming thing every so often for my Backbone, and even the PlayStation streaming works pretty good on phones with the Backbone. But like for whatever reason, PS Now specifically, running those old PS3 games feels like it almost feels like the difference in streaming technology that's being used for those games versus the stuff that we're so used to now feels like Oculus Quest versus the original PSVR. That is how wide the gap in just basic usability feels, because it just like these games being run on PS3 is just like you said, it might as well not be anything. Like these are all great games, obviously. Sure. Like this would be a great selection if you could download these. I think everybody would be like, oh my God, that's so sick. I was looking at this and I was like, that's sick. I'm excited. And then I saw all running on PS3 and I was like, oh, I was hoping that might have been like a typo or something. But then you didn't correct yourself and I was like, oh no. Oh, no,
yeah, they're running on PS3 because they're running from the collections, I think.
Yeah, the collections they don't want of dying PS3s in a warehouse somewhere that are no doubt dropping like flies at this point. Like, this is not a solution. Like you guys have to figure this out, because like you're right. This is the premium tier, and the premium tier should not be. They should not be. You can stream games like that's crazy.
Well, and that's the thing is that it's like with with the premium tier, if it was like, hey, we're going to give you lots of good stuff, native running PS1, PSP games, maybe PS2 stuff even, alongside this, then I might be willing to ignore it or kind of, be okay with it. But it's at the point where they are just shoveling just this towards us. Like, and to be clear, because I made a tweet about it and some people, I probably should have been more clear. This is specifically about the premium tier. The extra tier seems like a great value for a lot of people, and they keep adding to it. These Kingdom Hearts games on here, fantastic. Like,
it
great.
seems inverted, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, if my only suggestion, and I don't want to tell people really how to spend their money at the end of the day, but if you're not happy with the service, go and lower your tier. Even if you already paid for it, send a message like, just lower your tier. Lower your tier down, and even if you have it for a few more months, I'm sure Sony has the metrics of people dropping the tier, and it'd be like, dude, what you're providing is not sufficient for me to stay on this tier long term. You need to do better. And it's the only way at this point. Like, I don't know how many times I can tweet and complain and see other people tweeting, complaining. They don't seem to really be making changes. It's been months now. Months.
You can natively download fucking War of the Monsters. Why can't you download Ratchet and Clank on your PlayStation? That is crazy.
Yeah, I played Wild Arms 3 natively from PS2.
Yeah.
With trophies.
What the fuck is that? It makes no sense that you can do that with Wild Arms 3 or that I can do that with War of the Monsters or any of these other titles. But you have to stream other PS2 games. Like, why? At the very least, the PS2 game should be downloadable. At the very least. I get that maybe they can't figure out PS3 yet, somehow. But, like, at least we know you can make PS2 games work. We've seen this. So, like, just do that. I can't even imagine that it would be a lot of work, especially, and even if it is, again, premium tier. What are you paying for if not for the work to be put into it? I don't know. It's just, I don't know. It's the rest of it's cool. Like, all this other stuff is cool, is definitely great value. If you, not for me because I've played all of these things. Like, I've played Skyrim and Rainbow Six and and Oddworld. But like, if you haven't, that's cool. But that premium tier is like, I don't know what they're doing. It's a very confusing way that's being run.
I was about to, I wasn't about to. I was thinking of adding Skyrim before any of this happened. I was like, I never played through Skyrim all the way. I played it for less than 10 hours probably when it was on PS3, and I just never went back to it because it was all fucked. And when I saw that, I'm not going to get this new PlayStation Plus account thing, but I was like, maybe I'll buy that, play that. But I doubt that will happen. There's too many other things I want to play. But I will say, the tiers seem inverted. The quality of games that you're able to download, especially for PS4, seem very high. I think it seems to be getting in the domain of Game Pass in some way in terms of quality, certainly not in terms of day one stuff from first and second and third party alike. But my biggest question, I think, with what's going on with PS Plus is just, what do their numbers say internally? As I noted, I think a week or two ago, they're down about 4% in subscriber base, but they must be up in terms of revenue because of the new tiers, which are much greater than 4% more expensive. And I will say, I told you guys not to subscribe to this thing when it was announced, and I told you guys not to subscribe to it after we saw it roll out. I did say that, and I wish more of you listened to me, because a lot of you were like, I got my shit wrapped up till 2026, and I'm like, oh my God, what if it sucks? And I just think, I don't know. To me, I think I don't need a selection of games anymore. It's just too much. I want to just buy my games and be done with it. But even if they were courting people better with these more retro games, I just wonder what their intent is. They must have a plan, right? I mean, they must have a plan. I just, even though we make fun of them, there must be something going on. They own these games. It's not like they have to go and license a lot of this stuff. Sony published hundreds of games across these platforms,
I worry that their focus might be too split, because I feel like they're doing a lot of things right now. I feel that, they're doing VR, they're jumping into live service. They just acquired they just acquired like Bungie, and then they're trying to get that working. Or like presumably like siphon some knowledge off of that studio, and going into like MMOs and mobile and TV shows, and and they're trying to like buttress or not buttress, they're trying to enhance this weird tiered system for PS Plus. It could be a really simple problem of doing too much at once and not really having the resources to really focus in on what the problem is for any one of these given things. Like ideally you would have somebody or people dedicated to these things, and obviously that's how that works. But I have no other explanation as to why this premium tier is being fumbled so bad. Because you would think like any thinking person can see this and think like this is not what a premium tier should be. You know what I mean? Like it feels like there's some kind of like a stretched thin aspect or something. And that's the kind interpretation, you know what I mean? Because the other interpretation is they just don't know how to do this at all. So I don't know. It's not great.
Yeah, I feel like there's got to be more to this story. I don't know what it is. I don't know like what their plan is, because it's as we said. I think people's expectations for it have always been too high, but they could have done what Nintendo did during the early to mid virtual console days and have something going constantly. And it requires just a little bit of legwork. I don't know. We'll see what happens. I feel bad for people that subscribe to that sight unseen. I'm perfectly happy at PlayStation Plus, whatever it is. What is it called? I don't know. I don't care. It's premium is the top one.
Essential?
Extra. What is it?
Extra is the middle.
It's essential, right? Is that?
Yeah, it's essential. That's it.
Yeah,
I think
You're absolutely right. No, it is. That is it. So I'm fine there. I'm totally fine there. I barely play the free games. I got that discount when I bought Trails of Cold Steel 2. I think that was a PS Plus discount. So I got a little bit of my money back there, I think. And then just the cloud saves just for peace of mind. I do send my saves between different machines in my house, but I'm just so paranoid that something's going to like I'm going to put in all this time. And then I can't fucking believe that I used to play Final Fantasy II, which is 4 on Super Nintendo, and just put it on a battery and wish for the best. I mean, that's incredible. I would lose it. And I by the way, I did lose it a few times when I lost saves back in the day.
Yeah.
nothing worse.
There's a thing. Some people might remember this, and I don't know if you guys know this. Batteries in Nintendo games would sometimes get erased if you didn't hold the reset button in when you shut the game off. So when you would play a game like Dragon Warrior or Zelda or something, you were really supposed to hold the reset button in and then press off. And if you didn't do it, there was a decent chance that your save would get corrupted. And I just always was fascinated by that kind of shit and just what we dealt with, just to hope for that. It was like with the password systems, I would always write the password out and then immediately try it just to see if it was right before I would go off and do whatever I was doing. So I would knew if I was supposed to be disappointed coming back or if it actually would have let me back into the game where I thought it would be. Okay. Yeah. Let's get into the 6 questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, and ideas we like to end every episode of Sacred Symbols with. Of course, these are fueled by the audience over at Patreon, patreon.com/laststandmedia. We could not do it without you. Thank you so much for your love, kindness, and support. Sacred Symbols Plus, early and ad-free access, etc., and so on. We are fan-fueled. Again, could not do it without you. I think I said fueled twice in like the last 4 sentences, which was a little strange. Delta Bugles did write in, though. They said, boys, well, it happened. Sony has successfully gone all of the way up until and beyond the launch of Ragnarok before revealing any other first-party titles in the pipeline shy of the 2 Insomniac Marvel projects we have already known about, technically also Call of the Mountain. What is the take here? Are they being too quiet? Is there nothing to show? Should we be worried? Dustin, I do think it's time for us to go back again to this well-worn question on this show, which is what is going on? I mean, we're through now. God of War is here. And Spider-Man's coming next year, and Wolverine, I assume, the year after. We have Call of the Mountain for PSVR 2, which is technically first party coming out of Fire Sprite. I don't know. I mean, there's Last of Us factions going. There's going to be an Uncharted game coming out. That's probably early in development. Helldivers is coming from second party. I don't know. I have no idea what's going on. What's your gut telling you?
I think that the best theory to me is that Sony is being quiet because of the Activision deal. And I think we saw that illustrated pretty strongly in the Silent Hill reveal. Like, clearly that they paid for an exclusivity. There was other announcements around that as well that really seemed like that would have been showcase time. And it makes sense that they wouldn't necessarily want to show up a bunch of exclusives when they're fighting against exclusivity. And as we've talked about a million times, it's just a total shit show when it comes to the two major companies arguing about stuff that they both do. So I guess the question for me then is like, when do they start talking? Because there's going to be more investigations leading into next year for Activision and Xbox in Europe. So I don't know. Maybe right now their main initiative is to push PSVR into the beginning of next year. But at some point, CryEngine's brigade against Xbox and Activision is when do they be like, man, okay, we really can't be quiet anymore without it hurting us. Like we need to start advertising these upcoming products. We need to start that chain going. And so that's kind of going to be a big question, because I think they can only stay silent for so long. They have, like I said, they have PSVR that they can ride on for now until early next year. But after that, I think people need to know what's coming, for especially when buyers go in to buy a PS5. I think it's important for them to know what their investment holds for the future as well. At least that's something I would want to know buying a PS5 right now.
Yeah, I think you hit on something very, very important, which is they have no evidence for the consumer about what is really happening. And they can point, and I think readily so, and be like, well, dude, Call of Duty just sold $1 billion. Where do you think that game's being played? On PlayStation for the most part. Where do you think Final Fantasy XVI is going? Where do you think that Silent Hill game's going? Where do you think and I'm like, yeah, I get it, but the spirit of PlayStation, going back to the late PS2 era, I would say, is the exclusivity of the games. Not that they are exclusive, rather, I should say, that's ill put, but the games that are exclusive to the console. It goes back to Killzone. It goes back to God of War. It goes back to Resistance and Infamous and all of these things that are well over 10 years old now, 15 years old. And I feel like the spirit of those games is important to the viability of PlayStation with its audience, because those other games can track elsewhere. I mean, we're learning that Final Fantasy XVI is maybe exclusive for as little as 6 months. Now, that is easy to misinterpret, because I think that means it's coming to PC after 6 months, and then we go from there. But it just goes to show you that they need to lock down these exclusive things on their console if they want PlayStation to be a viable place to play long term, and they can control that best by announcing and showing off their games. And Crystal, I'll move over to you. I mean, we've gone over this so many times, and I know our answers remain relatively the same, but what doesn't remain the same is the calendar. The calendar just inexorably moves to the next month, the next week, the next day, and we have just as much information right now as we did 6 months ago, which is pretty interesting. Those Wolverine and Spider-Man 2, we knew everything about what we know about those games now, we knew 6 months ago. Yeah. And I think I've said before, what's exciting is not knowing, but actually it's becoming a little weird, because where are your games next year? I mean, Spider-Man 2, 2023 purportedly, but that can't be it. So you should start talking soon. And though Dustin says PSVR 2 gives them a little bit of an angle, I agree. But for a niche, for the people that are already engaged, I wonder what's out there for everyone else.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like maybe we'll see some stuff at the Game Awards in some capacity. I feel like there has to be, like you said, it's an unusual amount of time to not go without, or to go without saying anything about like what your first party is up to in a more concrete capacity. And obviously we don't have exactly the same information that we had 6 months ago. We do have a confirmation properly of like when Factions is supposed to be real, and we saw a little bit of it, technically speaking, with the concept art, and I guess you could make a pretty good case for like second party stuff or third party stuff in the form of like Silent Hill and these kinds of things. But for the most part, yeah, it's unusual that they've been silent for this long, and I do think a lot of that does have to do with the Activision deal. I feel like it's a pretty astute observation that all of that Silent Hill stuff happened at a time that would have likely been a state of play. But I think there's still time. They can't possibly outwait or they can't possibly wait for the Activision deal to be over to say something. I feel like that buys you a little bit of time. Maybe you can push things a little bit further along, but you got to say something definitely before the year ends. And as of right now, the Game Awards is really the only viable way to do that, because otherwise they're going to have to be silent until E3 time, and there's no way they're going to do that. And maybe they could do like a state of play in between then, but at that point, it's probably a lot of people are going to ask the question, why didn't you do this earlier? And so I think the Video Games Award, the Game Awards are our best bet.
Yeah, The Last of Us was announced at the VGAs.
Yeah.
So
absolutely,
just there's a Naughty Dog heritage
precedent
there. Yeah, there is for the biggest games. So
yeah,
we'll see what happens. Tight Whitey wrote in and said, "Greeting for seculars." I don't like that. After months of speculation and internet grousing, Sonic Frontiers has finally arrived to surprising critical acclaim. To recap, a better than expected movie with an even better sequel, fantastic animated shorts that tie into each new game release, Sonic Prime coming to Netflix in December, and a great comic book all the while. When are you boys going to understand that Sonic fans cannot and will not stop winning? Thanks for the great content and keep gobbling those chili dogs. Thank you, Tight Whitey, for writing in. Chris, let's stay with you. Sonic's winning.
I mean, I don't see it, but maybe it just hasn't popped in yet. I think,
damn,
I don't know. I don't know, man. I don't know about critical acclaim. Like, I think people are having more fun with it than they expected to, but like that game looks like a fucking disaster to me. But like, God bless. Like, Sonic has always been confusing to me. I never understood it. Sonic Adventure looks like a janky fucking mess to me. Like, I can't comprehend Sonic. I can't. I've long understood this, that it is a game that is designed almost purely to put me off in some way. Like, everything about it, like from the big-eyed, creepy, anthropomorphized creatures that they have two eyes, but it's also one, and it's like, what is this? To the pop-in, to the feeling of like going fast, but not really, because you're just sort of like the jankiness and like the quick. I don't know. There's something about Sonic that just never jived with me. I know the movie is big, and congrats for that. That's cool. It's a shame Sonic was the first big successful video game movie, but God bless.
Everything's upside down.
Hell,
yeah.
This is the hell timeline we're living in. I don't know anything about Sonic Prime or this comic book or whatever, but like, I mean,
it's a great comic book.
I guess I don't know. I don't read comics, so like I'm happy for you. I'm glad that Sonic Frontiers is doing something for you. I'm glad that there's something out there for you guys, because Lord knows you needed it. God willing, you needed it.
He says critical acclaim. It has a 72 on Metacritic.
It's not critical. Right. I was like,
dude. It says the number 79th best selling, or I'm sorry, number 79th best PlayStation 5 game in 2022.
This is how damaged Sonic fans are. That's critical acclaim.
It's a 70. Critical acclaim.
Critical acclaim. 72.
I love that.
We'll see how it does in the sales saga.
Yeah, I was watching some reviews of it, and like the poppin' in that game is amazing. I have never been as mesmerized by poppin'. Like, I think Balan Wonderworld or whatever was the last time I was just mesmerized by Poppin', and that was just because it defied the logic of what Poppin' is, because it was just reverse draw distance, and I just didn't understand how that would even function or why it would be functioning that way. But this is the first time in a long time that I've seen just. And we were joking. I was watching like a video of gameplay of it, and all the Poppin', like the squiggly lines in the sky. And I was talking. I was like, I think maybe someone came to like the level designers and like, hey, look, I got this idea for a level, and they made like a landscape, just like a beautiful landscape. And then the lead guy was like, that's very good. I'm gonna sign off on this. And then somebody was like interpreted the signage of like the squiggle as like something to add to the level or something, because it's like it looks hideous. Like, all that shit in the sky, like, it makes no goddamn sense. It's this very bizarre mix of Sonic Adventure and Death Stranding, and also just like, what is going on? God bless. I'm glad you're having fun though.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Is Sonic fans, I'm happy for them that they're happy. The bar is low, and it seems like it has been exceeded for a low bar, of course. But Sonic fans, here's the thing. They're getting a big head about this, which is hilarious. Just remember who the most famous Sonic fan is. Just keep that in mind. And maybe, he doesn't have the blue arms anymore. He's got the properly, the skin color, whatever. Is that skin on Sonic? Is that fur?
I mean,
I don't know.
Have skin, right? I don't know. Fur?
Foreskin? I don't know.
Fur is on the skin.
Just remember who your leader is.
Christian.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
No.
Art Vandelay wrote in. He wants to be our
Hey.
latex salesman. He says,
Hell yeah.
"Hello, gents. I can't shake the feeling that Sony still has a few cards up their sleeves in regards to the launch of the PSVR 2. For example, Gran Turismo 7 support seems like an easy slam dunk, even if it wouldn't be ready for release date. Shouldn't we expect a proper PSVR 2 blowout in the next couple of months, or is low-profile Sony the new norm? Thanks for all you do." So this is kind of an adjacent question to the one we got from Delta Bugles earlier. And Dustin, we can stay with you. PSVR 2, I would assume that absolutely imperative. We don't know everything about this machine. There's just no way this can be everything that they have to say. There has to be more, much more. How you feeling?
I don't know. I feel like hoping for some kind of big blowout or like a bunch of big games is wishful thinking. I'm not saying that there's nothing. I think that the best thing that we could expect going forward is a lot of current VR games announcing that they will be ready with a PSVR 2 port at launch. So like Beat Saber, trying to think of some of the maybe Job Simulator, stuff like that. Just something, and I know a lot of people played that on the original PSVR, but it's nice knowing that on launch day there's going to be a significant library available, particularly of your old games, or if you're new to VR as a platform, that you want to know that there's lots of options available, and also that you want to play some of the games that are VR classics, something like Super Hot VR, right? So I would expect to see a lot of announcements leading up, full ports coming, hopefully with free upgrades, but I don't know. I just can't think of what would be. If they had another big trick up their sleeve, I think that they would want to have that out during the pre-order window, right? Or as they get pre-orders going. I just don't understand what saving it would do, unless I guess they have claimed they're going to have a lot of units available at launch, and so maybe they think that this is a way that they can kind of continue having pre-order boosts is by continuing to announce things as they go on. But I don't know. There's been other times where I've thought, oh, they're going to announce a few more things, and then they just don't. So I don't know. Maybe I'm too pessimistic at this point.
Chris, do you have anything you want to
add? Dark Sector 2.
Oh,
next fall, baby. Better watch it.
Useful input, thank you. I feel like
I got nothing.
Yeah,
I don't know what I don't know what they would like, because it's all speculation. Like how the hell are we? The thing is, I just very much agree with Dustin, where it's like what is the incentive to save when you're already when you've already made it known that, like, all right, this thing is coming here. Surely you would want that thing. You wouldn't say, if you were saving anything, that would be the time to show it. Is when you were like, hey, look at the PSVR, look at all this stuff, look at how much it's going to cost, especially with that controversial price. You know what I mean? Like, and they surely understood that the price was going to be at least somewhat controversial, even if we've been over this on Sacred Symbols and Sacred Symbols Plus, even if it does make logistical sense from the business aspect of it. Surely you understand that consumers aren't going to see it that way, and they're going to be like, that's very, very high. It's a lot. That's a big asking price. What do you have to offer me? And the response is, here's the secret. And we didn't get that. So that leads me to believe that that's not happening. And I just don't know. I don't know what more you can extrapolate out of that, other than there is no secret card.
We shall see. With great interest. We'll watch your future with great interest. His Holiness wrote in and said, Hey, Sacred Slytherins, it's a house, not a slur. Last week, you went on about how digital sales of games are taking over and asked why anyone would still buy physical. I am one who still buys physical games, and the reason is price. Here in Australia, Modern Warfare 2 is $110 on PSN, but only $78 on Amazon delivered. For Ragnarok, the price difference was $125 on PSN and $95 on Amazon. As long as the price difference between digital and physical remains that stark, I will always be buying physical. Perhaps it's a US trend, as I know no one in Australia who has a digital PS5 or who predominantly buys digital games. That's very interesting. Chris, what do you think about this? And of course, he's talking about Australian dollars. But one of the things I hate, by the way, is people are like, look how expensive the games are in our country, mate. And I'm like, we don't all use the same dollars. So we're not comparing apples to apples here completely. But you do pay more games per the value of your specific dollar than we do here, no doubt. What do you think about people buying based on price? I assume this makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But I feel like, I don't know, man. You're going to have this thing now, just this box hanging around on a shelf somewhere because it was $20 cheaper when it came out. And now you have to have this thing. See, I understand people making the argument more for resale. But even then, I just feel like, aren't we paying for convenience at some point? I think buying a CD now is going to be maybe not. Maybe that's a bad example. But buying a CD would be like cheaper or as affordable as buying the album for 10 or 12 bucks on iTunes, or at least as expensive. And you're paying for the convenience of always having that available without having to have the CD, without having to have it put in a disc drive and all the rest. Right. I know these are first world problems, but to me, it would feel so strange to have just random physical games and then random digital games, depending on what everything costs. It's like I'm making a collection here of digital games, or I'm making a collection of physical games. So that to me is a more striking thing. But how do you feel about this price difference and people obviously buying around that? I assume that makes a lot of sense to all of us.
Oh yeah, 100%. I think when all of us talk about this, we're talking in the context of obviously our own surroundings and obviously our country. Like in America, where games are the same price in both facets, I just don't see. Unless you really were sold on getting rid of your games. I'm personally not really interested in resale, because I remember selling games when I was younger, and I really wish I hadn't. I really wish I kept a lot of those games. So for me, it's almost like, and not even necessarily for a value reason. It's not like, oh, I wish I kept that game because it ended up being like $500. It's more like, man, I wish I kept that game because now I can't find that game and I kind of want to play it. And I'm just like, I'm bummed about it. Like Spider-Man Web of Shadows has been so hard for me to find. It's insane. I can't do it. So, and for me, it's that. It's like, even if I buy a game and I don't love it, or even if it's terrible, like that's on me. And you know what? I'm gonna have that game forever. And I like that aspect of digital in some way, because and obviously there's always these like weird little things that happen. Obviously, Amazon most recently with, I can't remember what story or what movie it was specifically, but somebody had bought a movie on Amazon that it was no longer available, and then they revoked that right.
Yeah, we talked about that. That was a Warner movie or a cartoon of some sort. Yeah.
But I feel very secure with my game purchases on PlayStation and Xbox, especially because I went into the movies app on Xbox recently, and it kept all my purchases from like 2008 when I would buy things in Microsoft points. I have like an episode of Mind Freak that I bought with like
Long Island's own Chris Angel.
Yeah, with like spare Microsoft points, because I was like, whatever, why not? He's gonna float over the fucking Pyramid Hotel in Vegas. I guess I want to see that.
What a weird dude.
It's still there, and it's still there. It's still in. Like I can watch it right now on my Xbox because I bought it that long ago. So like, I feel like there's a little bit more. I have a little bit more confidence in digital games now, or digital media now than I used to. And so for me, it's like I love the convenience of being able to just like download it whenever I want, or just play whatever game that's on my hard drive without having to get up and look for a disc, or God forbid, it's just like, oh, God damn it, I forgot I let my cousin borrow that game. Damn. I don't know. It makes more sense in other countries when the price disparity is that drastic. Like, yeah, obviously, I could see why you would want to do that. But for me personally, the convenience of digital is so goddamn convenient that I would have to imagine that if there was ever a scenario where I no longer had access to let's say like the PlayStation servers like shut down, I feel like there are way, way, way bigger problems at that point, because that indicates that indicates like an EMP just went off over New England or something, like some crazy shit. So I'm fine with the digital ecosystem as is, but it makes perfect sense if it's that much of a price difference that you would buy it physically as opposed to digitally.
Dustin, anything?
Especially with Australian internet.
Yeah, wow, you were really coming in hot with that one.
I'm not mad. I encourage people to buy whichever one makes sense. I mean, I've put out some tweets about buying physical, like buy physical games, but I don't say don't buy digital. You know, it's like, I think that there's a lot of advantages of physical, and particularly this, I didn't know about this Australian situation. It's very, very intriguing. The truth, though, is that when you get outside of launch window, this is also true here. I actually brought up 3 examples just because I thought it was the case. Particularly, like I said, non-launch games. So Kingdom Hearts 3 on PSN is $59.99 right now. If you want to buy it physically on Amazon, it's $12. If you want to buy Devil May Cry 5 for PS4 on PSN, it's $30 on PSN, and it is $20 on Amazon. If you want to buy Evil Within 2, it's $40 on PSN, and it is $13 physical on Amazon. So sometimes we're talking over double the price to buy it digitally. This isn't always the case, right? It's not always the case. But again, it comes down to, what do you value? Some people don't want the box, or they want to be able to conveniently download it, like you guys, and that's fine. You're going to pay potentially up to twice the price for an old game, which for me would not be worth it to that level. Even if I was looking for that convenience, I would never pay twice the price for something like that. But I mean, to each their own. But there's definitely still a major price discrepancy between physical and digital. But again, not always the case. Sometimes I've bought digital games because they were a great deal on sale. So it sometimes can go the other way. But
like
when we're talking
Steam sales, man,
dude, Steam sales, PC is a whole different conversation when it comes to sales and digital and stuff like that. But yeah, there's advantages to both. I think both should exist overall.
It's funny because I'm sorry. Go ahead, Chris.
No, as just a quick aside, I remember the first time I got something from a Steam sale. I got every single Tomb Raider game ever made for $7. I remember, like, that's insane. I didn't even intend to play most of them, but I was just like, I'm an idiot if I don't buy this. I
was doing that on PSN for a while, post Steam. Well, Steam still exists, but post where that was the only place to do, and then I stopped doing that as well because what I was looking up was, it doesn't really affect me, I guess, because I'm buying my games at launch for the most part. I'm looking at the games I've played recently, like The Legend of Heroes I got for free back when I was like Kind of Funny. Shatter I bought at launch. Slay the Spire I bought later on, and Slay the Spire I got for PlayStation Plus for free. Tunic I bought at launch. Last of Us Part 1 I bought at launch. Deathloop I bought at launch. Cyberpunk I bought for $50, I think, when on PS5. Gravity Rush I got for free. Stray I bought at launch. Wild Arms I bought at launch. The Quarry I bought at launch. Shredder's Revenge I bought at launch. Tiny Tina's Wonderlands I bought at launch. Skywalker Saga I bought at launch. Nobody Saves the World. Ghostwire Tokyo. Elden Ring. Horizon. Infernax. It's like, so there's I don't interact with games like that, I guess. And I also, not to say that people should feel like this or that they have the money to do this, but I don't mind paying a little bit more if I know the money's going to the developer and I like them. But generally speaking, do what you got to do. I want the continuity of collection. The 2 physical games I bought most recently, where we were saying Metal Gear Survive, which was 2018, I guess I bought that, and just for shits really. And then I bought Lost Sphere, that random Tokyo RPG Factory game, physically for some reason, just because it was cheap or whatever. But that's it. I mean, I guess it's all about how you interact with the markets. And I'm glad you brought up, Dustin, that it goes both ways. There are deals on PSN sometimes where I'm like, what? There are sometimes 1,000 games at a time on sale on PSN, like steeply. So I think physical is one thing, especially if you want games like you were saying nearer to launch. But if you're patient, you can get almost anything for nothing or near nothing. Like there are deals where they're just like, here's every Ubisoft game for $10 each or something, and you just go fucking nuts with it. So yeah, I recommend everyone kind of use their discretion in that regard. But if you care about the health of the industry specifically, I would say give your money to the developers when you can. That's my opinion. Probably not gonna be a
but if you're buying a disc, I don't know. Like, still
I agree with you. It's the same. It's the same. I'm saying, just generally speaking, I would buy towards launch or for a premium if you could.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. No, you're right about it. I'm not talking about the Australian experience at this point, but you are right. All right. Michael wrote in and said, hey guys, I've been itching to play a dragon game lately. The 3 series I'm looking at are Dragon's Dogma, Dragon Quest, and Dragon Age. I haven't played any of those. Which would you recommend? Thanks, and I am loving all the Last Day Media content. Thank you, Michael, for writing in. I don't know what you would call it. Dustin, if he wants a dragon game, does he mean that like he wants just dragons in the game? Because if that's true, I don't know that any of them are really the appropriate game for him. Maybe Dragon's Dogma the most? Dragon Quest.
Skyrim is probably your dragon game.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah.
You're
Spyro the Dragon
trilogy.
Spyro,
yeah.
What else? Yeah, there was a budget, a very rare budget licensed game released this past fall, the fall we're in right now, for How to Train a Dragon. There's like a new How to Train a Dragon game that popped up on PSN profiles. So there's that as well, but if you're just being funny and you're saying you're looking for a game with the dragon in it, Dragon Quest is obviously the best of those 3 series. But if you're looking for games with dragons in them, are there dragons in Dragon Age? There must be. I only played Origins. Dragon Quest, there are dragons in Dragon Quest. There are. Dragon's Crown, that's a really good example. Yeah, Dragon's Crown is awesome. Vanillaware, Atlas. I don't know, Michael. You have a lot to choose from here. Dragon Ball Z? Wow, you're just spitting them out now.
I'm looking on Google.
Oh, okay. Horde. We were talking about Horde on PS3 the other day, which is you play as a dragon in that game.
Yeah,
Horde.
You can play the children's point-and-click adventure game Darby the Dragon circa 1997.
Nice.
Yeah,
nice.
Play that one. We can get out of here with your fucking question.
Fair enough. Michael, thank you for writing in. And finally, Mike Jacobson, different Mike, wrote in and said, hey, CDC, listening to Defining Dude this week and their discussion about improving the achievement system got me thinking, what ways could Sony further build on the trophy system in a meaningful way? Like you, Colin, I enjoy how looking back through trophies allows you to see what you were playing, and when I find going back too far can be cumbersome with so many titles on my list, what if they integrated a visual timeline to provide another way to interact with all this data? Things don't have to stop at trophies. They could also include notable events, milestones, hardware releases, and other aspects that could be used to further the meta across titles. Thoughts? Mike, I like your ideas, but the reason I wanted to use your inquiry today was just to reiterate, PlayStation Stars is really cool. I don't know if a lot of people are interacting with it. I imagine not. But if you go on the PlayStation app, so I'll show you. I don't think I'm showing anything. You can see this is my PlayStation app, right?
Uh-huh.
And then it's a little blurry, I'm sure. But here you can see there's like a number 3. I don't know if that's coming through, but you click on it and then it brings you to your PlayStation thing here. And then you can just see what your level is. So I'm level, and I don't know if this is coming through. I'm level 3 with 1900 points. And why I wanted to bring this up was over on the left side, it says full game purchases. So I have 5 of 4 full game purchases, which gets me to level 3. But on the other side, it says rare and above trophies, 39 of 128. So they're already employing something here with some sort of reward system that encourages you to get trophies that are actually not common. And I think that they're on the right path of not rehabilitating trophies, because I think in some way trophies are permanently broken, but in collaboration with those who care about trophies. So PSN profiles, hiding shovelware trophies, and hopefully maybe descoring them at some point in their leaderboards. Sony, and I'll have more to say about this next week, but Sony is releasing, I think, new information about standards for games released on PSN, which will hopefully lessen the shovelware situation as well. And then trophies can hopefully be taken more seriously based on percentage and rarity percentage based on what's going on with PlayStation Stars, and perhaps giving you these coins and this money to spend on PSN. So your ideas are good, but I think they're already doing something. I really want people to pay attention to PlayStation Stars. See what you think of it. If you're on the PlayStation app, I think it's pretty cool. Have either of you messed any further with it since we talked about it last?
I've signed up, but I don't know if I've looked at it since. I think I bought an Ape Escape monkey with my money with some points, and then it just kind of sits on your shelf. I'm like, oh, cool. And I never thought about it again. Yeah,
it's cool. Like I have a point, again, I don't know if this is coming through, but I have a points history. And so it lists for you why you're getting your points. So I got up 200 points for purchasing God of War, I guess, and then 100 points for purchasing Tactics Ogre, and so on and so forth. It's pretty cool. And then, yeah, you get some coins and you can spend on games, and it's just there right in the PlayStation app. Just check it out. You might enjoy it. PlayStation Stars. So yeah, I wanted to point that out based on your question, Mike. Thank you for writing in. That's all we have
Yeah.
for this episode of Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast. It's time to go. Chris, do you have any closing comments?
No, man, that Ape Escape. I'm jealous of that Ape Escape monkey. And
Dude.
I wish I had it. I wish I had it in real life. I feel like those plushies would make a killing still. Like if they made Ape Escape like plushies, like new ones, I feel like they would make a lot of money. They're so dumb looking. I love those monkeys.
Yeah, they need to do better merchandising. Although, again,
Yeah,
I don't
do.
know if they just care about making that little bit amount of money, but there are a few animals. I know in Japan it's bigger, but they have Toro and those other really cute animals as well.
Yeah,
and they can make plushies out of Ratchet and Sly and Bentley and all these different characters that they have. I love Bentley. He's my favorite. He's the turtle in the wheelchair in Sly Cooper.
Yeah, the crippled turtle.
The crippled turtle. That's right. Dustin, do you have any closing comments?
I just want to emphasize from earlier that Weird Al is the best, and everyone should watch that movie, Weird, because it's very good. And here's what I'm concerned about, is that Holly, for those of you who don't know, Holly's a voice and piano teacher. She told me that one of her students the other day didn't know who Weird Al was. This pained me deeply.
That makes sense.
So if you have younger kids in your life, do them a favor. Do some service for them. Introduce them to Weird Al. Listen to the song Albuquerque. I feel like that's one of the best deep cuts. And yeah, just I feel like that need to be said.
Yeah. Give them hand them a hand-me-down Dare to Be Stupid CD.
Yes.
That CD's the best. I love that CD.
I love it was a later one, but I think my favorite Weird Al song was It's All About the Pentiums. I like that one.
Oh yeah, with
great video.
Yeah, the video's cool.
That's a great video.
Yeah.
Weird Al is, man, what a good soul. Go watch that movie. It's fucking hilarious.
And watch UHF, his movie from the
movie from the
80s.
80s.
Oh yeah, UHF. Michael Richards is in that movie, and he kills a boy with a fire hose. It's amazing.
Yes, it's awesome.
It is insane. But anyway, yeah.
All right, my friends. Well, it's good to be here with all of you and spend some time, talk about PlayStation and all these wild things that we like to cover. Thank you so much for your love, kindness, and support out there on Patreon, free feeds, YouTube, etc., merch. We'll see you at the live show and all the rest. And we'll see you next time, of course, for more of this Sacred Symbols. Oh, until then, goodbye. Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, is a product and trademark of Last Stand Media and Collins Last Stand LLC, and is proudly recorded in the USA. The show was conceived by, is written by, and is directed by me, Colin Moriarty. My co-hosts are Chris Raygun Maldonado and Dustin Furman. The show is produced by executive producer Dustin Furman. It's edited by associate producer Ben Smith. All of Last Stand's theme music is by my best friend, Ramon Narvaez. As you know, all of Last Stand's shows, including Sacred Symbols, are fan-funded on Patreon at patreon.com/laststandmedia. The following names are at the producer level on Patreon, our highest tier, and we're grateful for your thoughtful and kind contributions to our independent endeavor. Thank you.
And before I get into God of War, I've been playing a little bit of Modern Warfare 2. What?
Oh,
What is this?
What happened?
Did you see that?
are you dying?
Did you see that? Wait, did you guys see that?
No.
You might have to do a mark. Because it said, a big thing came on my screen that said, "You are leaving." It's gone now. Does it say I'm still recording?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Let's.
Okay, yeah.
We'll
Sorry, that was
stop it and
weird.
restart just to be 100% sure.
Yeah, sorry about that. That was just very jarring.
I thought you were doing a bit for a second about playing Call of Duty.
No. A big thing came on the screen. It was like,
Yeah.
"You're automatically leaving."
Oh,
And I was like,
weird.
"What do you mean?"
Keep your local recording going.
Okay.
I'm gonna hit.
Yeah, okay.